Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller, not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
God's had to build my own family. I hate your son. I hate your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You in whose army, princess? You in whose army?
Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the
What is up, everybody? This is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook live stream. Yep. Anyways, before I forget, don't forget to, if you support us with the picking up Neofeud 2. Neofeud 1. What am I talking about? Neofeud 2 is not out yet. So do support us if you have an interest in cyberpunk adventure games, cyberpunk games, indigenous made, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist games, any combination of all those things. Do consider picking up Neofeud and supporting us here at the Silver Spook Hui/cooperative/commune with no bosses, no landlords, and no white saviors and no nonsense. We're going to be talking about a lot of fun Dune related things today. Dune the show. I didn't get enough sleep last night, so we'll see if I can stay on topic or go off for the next 70 years. It always feels like I go to sleep and I wake up in the middle of the stream, like about halfway through. I feel like my mouth is still moving, but I've like taken a little nap sometimes, especially if I'm really tired. But anyways, we're gonna try to stay on topic. Before I forget, the other thing I gotta do is I gotta give a shout out to Mexi. Well, technically, I guess I'm giving a shout out to myself, but I was recently on the Mexi channel. If anybody is interested, if you missed it, I was recently on the MEXIE. I'll try to get it up on the screen here. Sorry about that. But yeah, I was talking about land back, indigenous futurism, and Neofeud, of course, on this show here. Very good discussion, and of course Hawaii, in the as a native Hawaiian, I'm speaking from that perspective. Yeah, I thought it went pretty well. I gave an hour and 20-minute answer. Some people said that was their favorite part of the show, was like me taking a long period of time to discuss something. But that's kind of how it goes. And I feel like we did cover a lot of the important ground that needed to be covered. But yeah, it was a very good discussion. Most of me just kind of like trying to channel what I'm discussing into Mexi's kind of itinerary, which I do think we covered. I feel like we kind of planned it a bit, and I think we've covered everything that we wanted to cover in that stream. So I do recommend checking that out. It goes into topics that I don't always cover on these streams, including some of the inspiration behind characters such as Princess Sybil Clinton Bush, specifics about the Hawaii ultra wealthy, and that it kind of inspired it. Talk about the meaning of the symbols involved. There's a lot of Jewish symbolism and mysticism, particularly with regard to the Aleph, the symbols on the face of that king-like royal figure. And also, I don't want to spoil too much, but the symbols have to do with the Aleph and the Mem and the Tav. I kind of go more into what the meanings behind that were, what the Golem project in Neofeud ultimately means, as it relates to the MK Ultra project, eugenics, historical in the Western imperial white supremacist sense, and also in the science fictional sense, how it relates to the X-Files, the Matrix, and also to the Golem of Prague, which is part of the Proto-J origin story. And so it's a lot of the layers of meaning that at least when I'm making the game, I'm trying to like imbue these into the story and into the art. And not everybody's gonna pick up on all of that, so I go more into that, the background context for like why I chose, why is it like those specific Jewish characters on the face, like why is it called the Golem project, how does that relate to the rest of the story, and how because the Golem was a defender of the ghetto of Prague in one of the tellings, one of the versions of that character, and how that relates to Proto-J as a defender of the ghettos of Coastlandia. And in a certain sense, I guess I'm trying to be a defender of the ghettos of Honolulu, Hawaii, and hopefully of all of those in those oppressed imperial metropoles of internally colonized people. So anyway, do you want to learn more about all that? I don't always talk about those topics. I haven't touched on them in a long time. So you want to hear more about that, I do recommend checking this out. You may find it worth your watch. Also, just speaking about what is land back in a current milieu, how do we say, the current discourse with a capital D and a French spelling of course. I imagine it's spelled like CEORUXXIE, because the French put a lot of random X's and vowels to make a simple vowel sound. I don't know why. Just they like writing their fancy little letters. But but the discourse TM is very riddled especially in the Twitter sphere, with a lot of nonsense about what land back is, what indigeneity is. Indigenous people just want to privatize the land, and they're going to be capitalist landlords. Apparently Peter Coffin and all the Mr. V are all just failing to do what they need to do to finally get themselves liberated from capitalism, imperialism, white supremacy. That actually hurts all the people of every gender and color ultimately in the United States. Very sad to see people doing these things to themselves, try not to get too frustrated at that. So we do discuss that topic, and apparently it sparked a lot of people getting upset. Like Luna Oi is now blocked Peter after having to going back and forth. There's the Patriot left is kind of losing. Well, I mean, Patriot left never really had its senses, but it's really getting intense. And part of that is because a lot of indigenous successes, it was recently Orange Shirt Day, which is a day of trying to bring visibility to the indigenous suffering, for indigenous reconciliation, right? I mean, actual reconciliation, which means like actual equity. It means dealing with these very hard topics, and indigenous people. Apparently, like an area of New York, Manhattan, has actually been returned to indigenous people. Vancouver is having indigenous. The Squamish, I have that link here somewhere, but the Squamish have recently won and are moving forward on a indigenous led. I mean, I don't know everything. I shouldn't say too much about this. I always have doubts about things that are happening in so-called Canada. So I have to confirm this with all of the relatives that our indigenous relatives in the network. But I mean, if it is what they say it is, it's indigenous-led, multi-thousand person, affordable. It's not affordable housing, but it's indigenous built, basically like green scrapers, kind of like the ones that I was working on. That kind of deprivileges vehicles. Will go to support the Squamish indigenous people there on the violated territory that the illegal settler colonial failing country of Canada, the failing legal fiction of Canada is forced to concede there in downtown Vancouver. So that's scaring a lot of people. I think that it's like land back is starting to really which is just indigenous people asking for treaties to be observed by the Western settler colonial genocidal empires, right? Just asking for, it's not really in Hawaii. What is land back in Hawaii? It's asking for the United States to follow the United Nations High Commissioner on Human Rights, statements and orders, which are that the United States is undergoing an illegal military occupation, and a fraudulent annexation for over 120 years. And the United States has to follow and abide by international law, including the UN Charter, which it signed. So it's not really. It's just asking perpetual criminals. The world's greatest perpetual criminals, war criminals, inequality enforcers. Poverty exacerbators. China's a poverty alleviator. United States is a poverty exacerbator, internally and around the world. And the Belt and Road and the New Silk Road, that's in all of the material concrete development in Africa, Central South America, Pacific, and the U.S. is a poverty exacerbator, even of its own people. Its own white, even formerly middle class people are having their poverty exacerbated. And that is that's not, it's not necessarily like that in itself is not illegal. It's unethical. It's untenable. It's self-annihilatory. It's omnicidal. Everything larger than a, amoeba or a, anaerobic bacterium, when the Permian extinction event happens or the nuclear warfare turns us into a Mad Max LARP. It's not going to be right. So it's really in everybody's interest. It's not even just in indigenous peoples, and not even just indigenous people in the United States. It's really in all of the world's interests. It's in everybody's interests. It's in the two superpowers, one of which is trying to fight a failed losing war, and the other side which is trying to cooperate. It's in both of their interests that land back happens. In fact, and it's in it. So it's really the land back and colonizer discussion is a lot like the China-U.S. discussion, right? The indigenous people we don't want to fight you. We don't want to take your house and your toothbrush and your food. We actually want better for you. China, we don't want to take the U.S. 5G lunch. We don't want to take your supremacy and stomp on you, right? We want China. We want the people of the United States to have, right, 1,000 times less homelessness like the Chinese have. We want you to have clean water and electricity like the formerly poorest rural villages in Xinjiang now have, right? We want Americans to have that. We don't want you to lose. We don't want to win. We don't want you to lose or us to lose. We want both of us to win, right? And so we want win-win mutual cooperation between people, between nations and civilizations for betterment, productive and sustainable development. We want ecological maintenance, right? It's the China-U.S. relationship is very similar to the American white citizen indigenous relationship, right? One side is like, no, you want to do exactly what we did. America's like, no, China, you're just gonna blow us all up and turn America into your sweatshop, and you're gonna enslave us all. That's not what we want to do, you know. That's not what we want to do. That's not what China wants to do. That's not what the East Asia wants to do. ASEAN doesn't want to do that. Africa don't want to do that. Central South America don't want to do that. Indigenous people don't want to do that internally. And you know, but there's about 500 to 600 million people that have very privileged places in a lot of executive, very nice, very expensive, boardroom tables that are made out of platinum and diamond with very nice PowerPoint spreadsheets, hitting pointers. There's a lot of people with very privileged places in DC, in Silicon Valley, in Wall Street, in HSBC, in London, right? Sitting in courts in Canada, the governor generals, right? AUKUS administrators down there in Australia. And those people are telling the people who are diseducated in Australia, who think that arming yourselves with $80 billion worth of nuclear submarines, missiles, and F-22 Raptors to fight a losing nuclear war with your biggest trade partner is in the interest of the average Australian person or American or Canadian. And that's really the fight. It's really informational war between the 0.0001% neo-feudal techno kings and their arms dealer buddies, right? General Walker Coke Jobs and King Warren Clinton Bush, right? Diseducating the 500 million or so members of the Western countries that are thinking they're temporary embarrassed millionaires. It's that information war between that and the indigenous and the global East and the global South, trying to convince those people in those dying empires to turn against their abusive emperors ultimately, right? And let's they have no clothes already. They have no clothes. I'm just waiting for Biden to run out screaming, saying I'm chock full of ivermectin, and then the MSNBC, CNN, Fox, and all the blue check marks will be like, Biden is doing great work, liberating everybody's sexuality, not completely losing his mind and going to the far right, and he's going to prison with Alex Jones. That's what the mainstream media, they pretend like the U.S. has clothes on when it's like it's running around stark raving off of its unhinged already nonsensical shit, trying to start nuclear wars with powers that it can't even, one $10,000 Chinese missile sink any $10 billion American or British Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier. This is a quixotic, because let's use Western literature references so that they can understand it. Because there's actually 10 times more literature in China than there is in all of the Western world. Even Victor Hugo, a Western poet, was honest enough to admit that. It's quixotic. You're thrusting at windmills. You're, falling over and hurting yourself with 700,000 COVID deaths. Congratulations, United States. 50% of the world's COVID cases, 4% of the world's population. 700,000 COVID deaths. Chinese, 4,600. Abysmal failure. Complete abject failure. You just failure. I don't know how to epic. I need like a epic fail dog, meme from circa 2005. That's to really express how failed this is, and I don't have that at my fingertips. Anyways, but it's quixotic, it's self-destructive, it's self-annihilatory, it's it's just sad, it's sad, and everybody in every person like Peter. I mean, I look at him and I say, I'm so sorry, Peter. You're never going to have good health care, I hope you're doing very well, grifting and making a lot of money. That way you can pay for some health care, and your housing that's never going to go down. As long as you stand for the empire that's going to eat you for breakfast. I mean, sooner or later, Peter, I hope you make at least $10 million and invest that into Goldman Sachs private equity firms or something, because the housing price is going to go to 1.2 million a year in Michigan. You know, it's already 1.2 million in Maui, and they're taking all the water rights. You know, you're going to have to be paying or more in jail for the water to, you know, grease your smooth, your little dulcet tone lyric. I mean, you know, your radio programs, you know, that you voice act or whatever, you're not going to have that anymore. You know, it's really in your own interest. You really gotta like, you know, you have to agree with everything that every indigenous person says and just like, oh yes, we worship them. Like, it's like, take an honest examination of what they've actually said and done, right? Look at the facts. 4% of the population. It's actually, by U.S.'s analytics, it's like 2% of the U.S. population is indigenous. 25% of the carbon emissions have been eliminated by the indigenous actions with scientific studies. I mean, this is just science, but there's not a lot of science, and there's not a lot of history, and there's not a lot of facts in the Western left. Sadly, it just like pains me to say that, but it's normal in a society based on mass organized violence and then mass disinformation and racism, which, you know, if everything in public, private, and charter schools and university system is blasting disinformation where it matters the most, in economics and politics and in history, you know, and in a lot of science as well, it's biology, eugenics, you know, anthropology, sociology, full of nonsense, you're going to have a lot of disinformed people. And like, that's just sad. It's just sad, you know. And it doesn't impact me. That's why I don't care to talk to any of these people, because it doesn't really impact me. We're in the most land-backed, most decolonized parts of Hawaii. We're doing okay. You know, we're gonna keep housing more people here. We'll house white people. Even we'll house low melanin count people who still buy into white supremacy, even subconsciously, and capitalism. Even though they kind of put a hashtag, you know, A with an O in it, and you know, a Marx symbol, and then, you know, they drop a few things in their bio. But they're not really changed, you know, because they're not really listening to indigenous people. They're not listening to black and brown and indigenous people. They're not listening to the global south and the global east, which is what is required of you if you want to call yourself a leftist. You're not revolutionary if you're not an anti-imperialist, but these people haven't gotten there. But we'll still house them. You know, we'll still house them. My own father denies genocide to my face. You know, if he really did it, we'll house my dad, you know. We'll house my white, inside coconut white dad who's Hawaiian and Pacific Islander, even by the bogus blood quantum description and litmus test of the Western world, which is not how Hawaiians viewed ethnicity and your race and who you are. But we'll house these people, you know, and, you know, I feel very sorry for these people. I just feel very sorry for them, because you're the one dying by the 700,000. You're the one with, you know, 3,800 homeless people per million in California, and Hanoi has 4 per million. You know, you're the one with a shorter life expectancy than Cuba, despite it being many times poorer than you. You're the one with the healthcare that costs, you know, $30,000 when you get sick. You know, it's not the Cubans, it's not the Vietnamese, it's not the Laotian, it's not the Chinese. You know, they're okay. You know, they have a longer healthy life expectancy. You know, despite being one of the poorest countries 7 years ago. You know, that's just sad. It just really, you gotta figure this out. You gotta figure this out. Anyway, that's my plea, and hopefully, you know, people will hear that, you know. I say this, I'm just an emissary, you know. People say, Luna keeps tagging me. Luna's like, you know, Luna is doing the Lord's work. Luna is doing Aina's work. You know, Luna is doing Ho Chi Minh's work. You know, Luna is doing based Marxist. Luna is praxis. Luna is like talking about land back and decolonization and trying to educate some deeply abiding by white supremacy and settler mentality type people. And I'm like, I don't have time for this. I don't have energy. I'm too busy making, you know, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, freaking cyberpunk adventure games about super advanced indigenous, you know, FTL technology having civilizations, while, you know, Western barbarous clowns have space junkers that run on fossil fuel traveling between Alpha Centauri and Betelgeuse colonies. And I don't have time to just blow it and just talk. I can go on somebody's channel, and I don't have time to, you know, engage with this nonsense. It just, you know, I hope that people who can, you know, do their research, and by do research, don't Google it, don't look at BBC, don't look anywhere. It sucks because don't look in most places in the West. I mean, sometimes you have to go to like Eastern state-funded or state-affiliated media to find true things. You know, not you don't have to exclusively go to the state-funded or state-affiliated one, but just you can't be in the Western capitalist imperialist world to get truth a lot of the time, especially when it comes to current events. So I highly suggest. I mean, I'll give you some specific. Child Collective, Michael Hudson, Richard Wolff. I mean, there's truth sayers in the West, but harder to find. And you know the truth sayer in the West because they will admit that 99.9% of what comes out of the mouths, what isn't written in university documents, in the news media, in the history books, is bullshit. You know, if they're really honest, they're gonna front load it with everyone in the economics profession is basically a dupe and a schmuck and a shill for a wrong system called capitalism. That's why Richard Wolff, I'm like, yeah, he knows what he's talking about. And Michael Hudson's like, screw this country, I'm out of here. I'm going to China. I'm going to help them alleviate poverty. And I hope Americans can figure out, look at what they're doing and stop self-cannibalizing yourself with neo-feudal techno kings eating up all of your, you know, all of your houses and your healthcare and your roads and stuff. You know, like try to learn. You know, and that's how you can tell because they'll admit this. You know, and it's hard because you're like, I'm a white man from the United States of America, and that's hard to admit, you know. Or I'm a white man passing person. It's not necessarily exclusively that, but it's harder the more you're in it, you know. So it's hard. It's easier for me because I've always been kind of mistreated for being not white man passing, you know, in the white $20,000 a year Emperor Palpatine training facilities that I've gone to, right? Talking about very expensive, Ivy League feeder private schools. Only because my dad taught there, you know, and so that's a weird thing about me. It's like I'm trained in that narco trafficking, New York senator / Wall Street billionaire white man brain, but I'm a white man brain trader. You know, I'm an empire trader. You know, so I went to school across the street from Obama. Obama did a good job. Like I'm an anti-Obama. You know, he like said he was the master of lying for the empire. He was the master Palpatine, you know. He's like, he accelerated the US empire's hegemony, I would argue, you know, by a little bit longer than it would have been, you know. And Trump decelerated. Biden is not doing a very good job. He's not as good, you know. He doesn't do as good a job airbrushing over the war crimes because you can still kind of see through it better than Trump. Trump just like, yeah, we're taking your oil, we're gonna blow y'all's up, and let me just piss off all of my trading partners, and you know, let me just table flip the grand chessboard when I'm winning, you know, just screw this, you know, I'm just gonna knock all you off the chessboard, you know, slap Justin Trudeau. I'm gonna go over to Europe and I'm gonna like, yo, NATO, you gotta give me some more money for that aircraft carrier, huh? Give me some. I got nuclear missiles inside of East Germany over there, aimed at Moscow. I want some money. I want you to pay for it. And then, you know, if Trump had just like followed the DC think tank, the USAID, and all of the professional liars, cheaters, and stealers like Mike Pompeo. Well, actually, Mike Pompeo's predecessors were more competent than him. But, you know, the U.S. could have maintained its winning the grand chessboard game. I should get into Dune shortly. But Obama was the master of that. And so you see how Obama got up and said lies for the empire at light speed, you know, for a living. And a nice Audacity of Hope book deal. And many, you know, Clintonian level hourly rate payouts, giving speeches to Davos and the G7. But you see, Silver Spook is the anti-Obama. I went to school right across from him, but I say true things for no money. Obama said lies for maximum money and maximum empire, the greatest superpower that is, well, the most terrible superpower and empire that has ever existed and probably will ever exist. He told lies for that and was the master Palpatine. And I'm the anti-Obama. I just say true things for free. I don't ask you. You don't give me that. You don't give me anything. Anyway, I did literally go across the school. Me and Positive Synergy body surfed Obama's President war criminal Obama's favorite body surfing spot, Sandy Beach. You ever come to Hawaii? It's on the east side of Hawaii. My dad actually grew up body surfing there. There's no like Jack Johnson concerts. There's no bathroom there. It's just some mud. There's like some pig farms next to, and then that was the best body surfing spot. Gas chambers. You know, it's like a smooth ride. It goes down like, you know, very expensive wine that Silver Spook can't afford because I can't buy Romani Conti and all that shit that one of my, some of our relatives can afford. But you know, it's the best waves in the body surfing world in my opinion. Outside actually, Point Panic, never mind. But like outside of Point Panic, you know, Sandy Beach, and I know where this war criminal, right, the greatest emperor The greatest Atreides, Harkonnen put together, because it's the same thing. It's all Western bullshit. That's what Dune's about. It's a bunch of white savior nonsensical bullshit, and it's a failure. Anyways, I'm sorry. Dune is a very good movie, and you should really watch it because Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa. I'm gonna be talking about the political angles of, not the movie. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know, but you can see it. But I will say that, like, you know, you can. I don't want to throw shade at body surfing. I feel like people are gonna like give up their fins now, and they're not gonna go to the beach. The beach is a good place to go, especially in COVID. You know, open air, salt water. You know, get some nature. You know. Jason Momoa knows. You know, that's why he's. You know, Jason Momoa. I love it when people are like, Jason Momoa, was it hard for you to like learn how to swim for Aquaman? And Jason's like, I'm Hawaiian, bro. I'm like, that's that. I can at least say that for the greatest war criminal that's ever existed, you know, President Obama. I mean, you know, you're from Hawaii, you got to know how to freaking body surf. I mean, whether you get up and commit war crimes and perpetuate, you know, the potential of nuclear annihilation and bring the doomsday clock another few steps closer to midnight by allowing the U.S. empire to survive another 10 years, or you just like make anti-capitalist cyberpunk adventure games and then fucking go on people's random YouTube streams, and then, you know, you if you don't know how to swim, I mean, are you even Hawaiian? No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to know how to swim, but I mean, like, there's just water all over the place. You know, to be honest, like when I first went, you know, when you first go to the beach, to be honest, I actually don't go to the beach as much because I have like this weird, my body temperature is like I lost a lot of weight, and then my ability, like I lost my like biological you know, exolipid, not exoskeleton, my exolipid wetsuit is like deflated, and now I get like freezing ass cold. I don't like going in the water as much as I used to, but you know, this is a random aside of Silver Spook stuff that I gotta stop doing. Anyway, I told you it was gonna go off topic, but main topic, Dune. Dune and the Grand Chessboard. Okay, here we go. Western Empire, Eastern civilization, and the more complex game of Go that remains beyond the ken of Earth's chess-playing Atreides. So, you know, again, I gotta front load this. You know, you want to watch these shows, you watch these shows, you know. Also, I have not seen Dune, of course, not even out yet. You can see that release date, right? It says, you know, this December 1st. It's very small on my screen. October 22nd, I'm just kidding. But, yeah. December 2077, I think. Anyway, the Grand Chessboard, it begins. But, you know, of course, Jason Momoa, you know, he's up there on Mauna Kea with us, native Hawaiian like myself. Defender of the sacred mountain Mauna Kea under illegal occupation by the U.S. Empire and the Indo-Pacific Command, the greatest Earth Empire, the Harkonnen of Earth, I should say, the U.S., you know. And Jason up there trying to stop that illegal occupation with us. He was up there, you know, in ceremony. And also has said, Aquaman 2 is not coming out. If you try to build TMT, this is our ace in the hole, right? This is our ace in the hole. Jason, Aquaman 2 is going to get smashed and killed by a bulldozer backed by the U.S. Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, the U.S. Empire, 30 Canadian universities, Jan Napolitano, ex-Homeland Security officer of the greatest Harkonnen / Atreides emperor that's ever existed, Obama, and Japan and India. And if you try to build that illegal act, illegal against the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, right? Because we don't, Native Hawaiians have not given our consent. And if you try to do that, you know, Mr. Idaho from Dune, the, you know, aquamarine, very good swimmer, with or without, you know, godlike powers gifted by the Atlantean DNA, Mr. Aquaman is going to be killed on that mountain. That's what he's actually said. I'm going to get, you know, I don't know how you're going to explain to the Hollywood directors and producers that are going to lose out a lot of money, and DC Comics, that Aquaman got killed on because he got run over by a bulldozer on Mauna Kea. So that's actually, like, you know, that's a big threat. I mean, that's like multi-billions of dollars potentially worth of cashish that the military-industrial complex entertainment arm called Hollywood would lose. That's a lot of money they might lose if they don't make Aquaman 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, You gotta hold on to what kind of media power you got in your dying shitty empires that can't barely touch international family mutual win-win cooperation shows like Fast and Furious about spoiled rich white pricks, and Black Widow about rebranding America as some kind of light on the hill, and garbage like Falcon and Winter Soldier, and everything that comes out of Disney, and even Shang-Chi is like not even close enough. But I mean, better that you have some, Simu Liu and some actual Asian representation, but that's not sufficient. So they can't afford to lose Jason, and so that's really why. It's because they need Aquaman 2 to happen. That's why there'll never be a project on Mauna Kea. No, that's not the only reason. But Jason is a native Hawaiian. Jason is also indigenous from Turtle Island, and also he has colonizer ancestry too. But that's a thing. That's a thing. I have that too. So anyway, we share a lot of that. So I just want to say, I'm not saying don't see this movie off the bat. I'm saying like it'll probably be very entertaining. I like Denis Villeneuve's. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your French Canadian name wrong. Not really. I don't really care about colonizer language. You've made me learn it. Fuck you. No, but Denis Villeneuve's 2049, Blade Runner 2049. I like that a lot. It has a. I thought it was a good job. As a follow up to the Cathedral of Blade Runner, the cyberpunk Cathedral of Blade Runner, which I know Denis and everyone else was scared to. They might vandalize it as a kind of a hallmark of cinematic history, and of course, as a cyberpunk game creator, of course, Blade Runner is in the Steam description of the Neofeud, pitch. Like, it's a very important film for cyberpunk history, for film history, in terms of cinematography, in terms of the scale and scope of the narrative. And Denis is basically a wannabe Ridley Scott, and that's totally fine. We all are. Everybody is. Every film school dropout, including I include myself in that. I created a practicum class with 6 other washed-up has-been writers and wannabe Harvey Keitels and kind of poser-ass Boots Riley's at Evergreen State College. In fact, actually, I went to the Evergreen. The SJW College where all of the screaming leftists are just coming for all of the colonizers and the white man's ivermectin. I was at a class there that was literally about trying to be. We made films there. I made student films. My first college major was soundtracking for film. I soundtrack like these like student movies there, and we watched all the Hitchcock. We watched the Ridley Scott. We watched the I'm mostly white guys with the exception of Kurosawa, because he's like the white guy's Asian guy. It's like George Lucas over there ripping him off for Hidden Fortress into his Star Wars. Speaking of sci-fi desert shows, badly understanding the Go game of Asia and the West. But anyways, so Dune is a movie that I don't know how good and bad it's gonna be. I'm just commenting. I'm using it basically as a way to not get this thing de-algorithmatized, because if you put the word indigenous or decolonization anywhere, YouTube is like, fuck you, we work for the Empire of the United States as a surveillance capitalist digital arm of the military-industrial death cult, right? And then they just wipe you off. Like Wet'suwet'en, like Una Stoltenkamp got their account deleted. Like Breonna Taylor's name got deleted, and 3,000 accounts were deactivated on Twitter instantly just for saying hashtag Black Lives Matter. That's a totally normal thing for the Western-controlled, disinformation matrix to do. So that's why I just put pop culture pictures with, famous, Western, movie things coming out, because that's what YouTube wants you to do. I wish clowns like Peter would just talk about why Star Wars 2 was good or bad. Just do that. Stop playing with politics. You don't know what you're doing. You're hurting yourself, actually. So anyways, let's talk about Dune, though. Dune is a book. The end. Anyway, no, Dune is a book written by, of course, Frank Herbert. As a ghostwriter for William Gibson, I will say that I'm just kidding. I have ghostwritten for very wealthy, very low melanin counts, very well connected Canadian and American science fiction writers. And let me just say, as somebody who has to research science fiction of the Asimovian, of the Heinleinian lineage in order to make references and describe things within the Western mind, Dune is very important in that realm of Western science fiction as a subgenre of Western fiction, as a subgenre of I should say Western science fiction and fiction generally include the greatest. One way I like to describe it is the greatest writers, the greatest fiction writers in the Western world. The greatest American fiction writers are not T.S. Eliot or Hemingway. They are the history textbook writers and the news media writers and the policymakers in DC. Those are the greatest fiction writers. They write great legal fictions, including Canada. Good job writing the legal fiction called Meng Wanzhou violated Iranian sanctions about feeding and giving medicine to Iranian people. Why would you sanction that? A, B, in the United States. So anyway, it's just nonsensical. Canada has no court. There's no such thing as law in the Western entire world. There's only such thing as barbarism with Judge Judy gavel slapping characteristics. That's all there is, because this is the whole. I was just listening to KJ No and Julie Tang, ex-Hong Konger judge in the United States and very important anti-war and anti-imperial activist that is arch nemesis of the Rand Corporation and other Air Force and U.S. military-funded think tanks and grand chessboard novice players like the U.S. empire. So, because your hegemony is only lasting 30 years. You're a clown. You're a clown show. No, but it was like it's Meng's case is very important to this, and that the Meng's case is a failure of the Earth grand chessboard. You're already getting outplayed, but that's because China's not playing chess; it's playing Go. The global East is not playing the actual left, the actual communist world, the actual indigenous advanced civilizations that have existed for thousands of years, which the United States thinks it's dealing with. It thinks it's dealing with just another Britain or France or Germany, like all these Europeans slapping each other and throwing, swords and knives and gladiuses and guns and bombs, and Henry Ford funded multi-billion-dollar making Nazi tanks, panzers, aircraft, and bullets that Henry Ford made tons of money. You think you're just fighting another European power. You're not fighting that. You're fighting something much more advanced. You're fighting a indigenous civilization. And they don't want to fight you either. That's a very important point. That's what we have to keep that in mind. The victory condition of China is not that the United States is annihilated, destroyed, subservient, win-losing, right? And then Americans are just gifting 90% of their labor value, their resources, and their wealth to Chinese to then, sit on, thrones made from their children's, white children's bones and swords melting down. I wouldn't want to melt down, a Reaper drone. I mean, it sounds pretty toxic. I don't think I want to use nuclear radioactive material to make, even if I had a throne. In China, they don't really have thrones because they don't really do feudalism. They kind of lost all their feudal lords in the neo-feudal undoing called the, El Mao, as Carl Zhao likes to say, like laughing, parentheses, Mao, they I'm laughing my ass off to the bank that I'm taking all of your landlord and corporate lord and university lord and collateralized dead Texan energy lord obligation, like all the private equity firms. They took all that money and that land and their resources and they landed it back. China is a successful land back. It's called you a landlord, now you're not a landlord. Luna's grandfather was one of the wealthiest people in the indigenous civilization of Vietnam's territory, and which is not good, but it was a place where they would write poetry about Luna's grandpa, because Luna's grandpa was well off, and so and part of that is due to the history of colonization as well. But the French, the Japanese, and there was not zero struggle between the Chinese as well. So we have to keep that in mind. No people is perfect, and no indigenous people. Indigeneity is like on a spectrum, I would argue. If you go back long enough, right? It's like how much have you existed and how well have you successfully lived in mutual respect from person to person, from nation to nation, from person to land, with the Aina. How well have you lived out your Aloha, your Kuleana, and your Pono? Not every ali'i here in Hawaii has been Pono the entire time. Not every Communist Party member has been uncorrupt, as we have learned. There's a $17 million bribery scandal for which the executive of a beverage company in China was recently sentenced to life in prison for. So this is not like, oh, and now they're perfect and they have no, they have problems. They know this. We know this. I know this. I know my parents have some problems with things in their head, but a lot of that's due to greater colonizer indigeneity ratio empire showing up and then destroying our entire people and fucking banning Hawaiian language and culture, ghettoizing us, and win-lose chess game playing with the Hawaiian people and land, as opposed to win-win cooperation, right? And so you know, we have to keep that in mind, that's what's actually happening. Is the win condition for the United States in this game, right? For the West in this game is we're on top and you lose. Somebody has to win and you have to lose. Like Vosh, you know, black nationalism is just white nationalism. And, you know, give it 10, 20, 50 years, you motherfuckers will be doing exactly the same thing that we did to you, right? But that is the deep that is the meta narrative of the entire West, right? Somebody has to be on top. Somebody has to dominate. Somebody is the Lord. Somebody is the Viscount. Somebody is the Count. Somebody is the Baron, the Duke, the Duchess, right? Of York, of Windsor, right? Of the Lannisters and the Tyrells, as I love in Game of Thrones, because it's very. I hate that it got a black eye, because it tells the story of Europe very well. And as George R. R. Martin says, the nasty, brutish, short lives, everybody dying before 30, dying in some mediocre, banal, you know, diamond-studded, undeserved tyrant ruler, you know, a war or you know, conflict started because of somebody's queen cheated on someone else's king, right? Or some prince, or some haggling over some, you know, some oh, I need more money, I need more territory, right? And everybody just dying and starving and dying in famine and dying because they don't wash their ass and get black plague and all this nonsensical things that they did. Just very sad things that they did to themselves in Europe, you know, for a long period of time, especially after Rome traumatized them and they never healed from it, which is, you know, somebody's brought that up. That's a very important point, that is a big problem. Problem is they didn't ho'oponopono, as we would say. They didn't bring equity and righteousness and justice. They just say sorry, and then they kill everybody else. You know, they go sorry. They go here. You know, there is no right making. There's only treaties that don't get followed. That is like, oh, okay, we'll stop killing you for now, but the second that we can get away with it, you motherfuckers, the second we can get away with it, we're going to kill you, and then we're going to take all your stuff, and we're going to enslave you, and we'll ban your language and your culture. You motherfucking Protestants, you know, now I'm Louis the 14th, and now I'm going to send dragonades and dragoons into every one of your houses, and I'm going to have soldiers quartered that will steal from, harass, rape, and possibly kill you if you practice the Protestantism flavor of Western illusory Christian historiography. And the Protestant says, as soon as we motherfuckers get enough power in the Anglo Kingdom, or, you know, somewhere in a British or white Anglo-Saxon Protestant capitalist America, you motherfuckers, you better get ready, because we Protestants are gonna do the exact same thing to you that you did to us. And that's how so you black people, you brown people, you global south people, you other people, you're gonna do the exact same thing that we did to you, because that's what always happens, right? British, you know, the British and French, the you know, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Protestant, Catholic, Ottomans, North, South, you know, Italy, you know, as soon as one of us can get a leg up on any one of you, we're gonna storm your castle. As soon as we can figure out a better trebuchet or a bigger sword to stab through, you know, or a faster a whippier, you know, fencing apparatus and evolution of this mass organized violence, disinformation, and oligarchy that has existed in Europe for centuries and centuries. As soon as we can figure out a better way to fucking stab through your armor, we're going to kill you and take all your stuff. So you better get your castle. You better have that Italian style, or your Himmelschloss. You better have your levitating jacuzzi and your levitating flying palace. Because General Walker Koch job is going to come and coup the shit out of you, gonna take all your stuff, we're gonna blow you up, and we're gonna rule. We're gonna rule. Somebody has to rule. Somebody has to be on. Somebody wins and somebody loses, right? In the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. You know? No, but it's in the game of European barbarism. You win or you die. You win or you die. You get enslaved. You get annihilated. Your culture is gone. Your language is gone. Whatever 56 ethnic regions and languages, many indigenous peoples that just have been wiped off the map, subjugated, made subservient. We're going to turn you into our potato farmers, and you can all die in a famine. And we'll die in famines too, because we're filled with oligarchs in Europe. And that's just sad. You know, it's just sad. I mean, I don't say that because, like, I just hate those people with low melanin count. I mean, no, it's not. That's just like, it's too bad. You know, it's too bad that people didn't hear from the trauma of and the death and destruction of Rome, and they just continue to re-traumatize themselves again and again and again and again. Like an abusive father that was a drunk, beating his Hawaiian wife like my white cowboy grandpa who fled Texas and Billy the Kid and slept with a gun under his pillow, and then traumatized his wife, and then that family member traumatized his son, and he became a drunk working in downtown Chinatown in Honolulu, Hawaii, and traumatized his family and didn't feed them and didn't clothe them because of the traumas of violence. And then they re-traumatized my father. My father is a white man inside, and he thinks that Hawaiians are gone and dead, even though he's more Hawaiian and Asian than he is white. And he says, Chris, Canada's not committing genocide. Catholic Church and Canada have some problems, but you know, a lot of people got tuberculosis in the 60s, and the residential school bodies that are being unearthed by the thousand and tens of thousands with satellite imagery and scientific and forensic data, he just turns a blind eye because he can't face the trauma that was done to him, his father's father's mother, his mother's mother, and he perpetuates that. But I'm trying to be the one that stops. I'm trying to be one to try to undo more of that trauma. Then my father, and it's my father's father, as a fourth generation neo-feudal serf, ghettoized Native Hawaiian, whose language was banned, whose culture was banned, whose universal healthcare system 25 years before any European country was banned, whose most literate country in the world was annihilated by the United States illegally against the United Nations direct declaration, against the United Nations and the Geneva Convention, who continues to be in flagrant violation of the Geneva Convention, whose most literate country in the world invented 20,000 leagues under the sea, real life submarines when Jules Verne dreamt them up, right? Who had railroads and economic development that was in advance of even the United States. Hawaii that had flush toilets when the president was shitting in an outhouse. Hawaii that had full electrification before much of the United States. The White House and Iolani predating the White House, right? This had a higher literacy rate than European countries because of the same thing that I just said. Because somebody has to win and somebody has to lose, and internally, that's capitalism, that's feudalism, right? That's oppression of the different gender orientations, genders, sexualities, religious beliefs. That's the eternal religious strife that ransacks and plagues Europe, along with plagues for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so Hawaii we didn't do that. We said, why would we allow only the ruling elite to be privy to excellent educations, right? Which is what Europeans did in the 1800s. Why we care and we aloha everybody, right? We want everyone to have an excellent education, right? We don't want win-lose education. That's really what's happening in the United States to this day. The Western world, 75% of France thinks that the United States won World War II. It doesn't even know its own history, you know? It was reversed, and at the end of World War II, they knew who the Russian and the Chinese actually did the vast majority of the fighting. But even Europe diseducates itself. You know, not even Europe. Europe always has this. Europe has Western illusory Christian historiography, as Voltaire accurately described before he was exiled and imprisoned. And as Richard Wolff says, the United States doesn't have any. As Michael Hudson will say, there is no economic department. There's only a science fiction department writing about an alternate parallel universe in which the free market works, right? But and for that he wasn't exiled, but he left the United States and he worked for an advanced Go-playing Asian advanced civilization. That's what Michael Hudson did, because you can't get a job teaching the truth at the university level in American and many Western economics departments. That's sad. That's really sad. That is sad. That is win-lose education within the imperial metropole. That's what that is. It's a disservice to every American and Canadian and person, in those empire, in those countries. that you can't even get an education. Even if you pay a $200, $300, $600,000 for it, you go to Harvard, you're wasting your time. I mean, you're not wasting your time. You're going to come out a neo-feudal lord or king by rubbing shoulders with, emperor, fucking Saudi F-35 purchasers and billionaires and, surveillance capitalist moguls like Mark Zuckerberg. And you'll be able to live with the neo-feudal lords above everyone else. But I mean, it's sad that you can't get an education in the United States, and you have to ban critical race theory in 28 and counting states, which is not even a full education on history of racism, colonialism, capitalism in the United States. Britain has banned anti-capitalist education in the UK, so that's really normal and cool. Literally, formally, you have to ban it already. 1619, that's like a slightly progressive, that's not even left, liberal, better truth of the United States. It's not even as much history as is needed. That's all banned. 28 states and counting. So this is just sad. It's just sad. But that's part of why the Western Empire will lose, because that can get you pretty far. That will get you a few centuries. Taking guns and then pointing them. With advanced indigenous civilization invented black powder for celebratory gungi fa choi and, dragon dance and shakang shahui, the Chinese moderate prosperity celebrations that they have on birthdays and the Golden Week in the Chinese New Year, and it's a celebratory. And then they take this advanced indigenous civilization's inventions, including paper, which the Chinese had for centuries and centuries before the Europeans brought Chinese enslaved people back. And that's how they got the paper. A lot of the technologies was just like, let's just enslave some people and bring them back. Terrible. Chinese had defense, anti-slavery laws 2,000 years ago. So that's just sad that America is, in 2021, still has slavery, because the 13th Amendment doesn't abolish slavery. It just turns it into for-profit prison, 2.5 million mass incarceration for maximum capitalist profit, organizations, like making Amazon, Whole Foods, and vegan and non-vegan cheese for 25 cents an hour in the incarceration facility in Arizona, which is where a lot of Hawaiians go. They get taken out of this Hawaii and sent thousands of miles away to do slave labor and have our culture and people genocided. On top of it, because you get disconnected. It's what they do this to most communities. They'll take indigenous people in somewhere in so-called Ontario from their tribe, and they'll send them thousands of miles away on the bogus pretext that, well, you can't. You're an indigenous person. You are in poverty because, well, we impoverish you, and so you're unfit to take care of your children. So let me take your children and send them far away in an abusive foster home that you will often get sexually, physically, mentally, and financially harassed and then die in. And Canada does nothing. So that's a normal thing for the U.S. and Canada to do. That has to be reckoned with. That's part of reconciliation. Is you have to at least acknowledge the harms that are actually being done, and not just acknowledge the harms. And you have to actually make concrete equity restoration. Among other things. But Canada and U.S. and the Western world has never and will never do that, I argue. They're going to stop being around. They're going to stop being around before they ever do that. They can't. In order to begin to address, they don't have enough money to make right on the multi-hundreds of trillions of dollars stolen from the silk and tea with narco-trafficking, opium, and anti-Asian racism. Canada and the United States are both built. They're like built on. It's like the United States of steal shit from Asia, including their ideology, including their black powder, their silk, their tea, multi-trillions of dollars of all their chinoiserie, and all of their people to build the West Coast infrastructure and the railroads for the U.S. and Canada, and then take it over with white leftist labor unions that are not, that unite with white capital to destroy them, genocide them, mass lynch them, put them into, and so it's the United States of anti-Asian racism, right? That's what it is. It's the United States of anti-Easternism. It's the Canada of anti-Asian racism. Is the United States of steal shit from Asia. It's the United Kingdom of steal shit from Asia, right? Like, take your fucking Her Majesty's, the old, not Her Majesty, the Queen Elizabeth, $10 billion waste of money while 160,000 died from austerity in 10 years. Bullshit operation called let's pretend like we are some kind of empire, opium war on acid 2.0, and sail a fucking aircraft carrier that can be sunk by a $10,000 missile up and down the South China Sea, which is what Britain is doing with the United States. But the original opium war, where they had more advanced technology than the Asians. The difference is this is a century of humiliation. Was just, oh my goodness, these barbarian clowns that call themselves at civilizations in Europe took our celebratory technology, right? Black powder at the time, and then they made weapons of death and destruction to hurt and kill and crush and win, lose, colonize and crush and slaughter each other. And now they've come back, and that's what Europe they got better weapons of mass, and they had less morality, and they had less, just like ways of being and just barbarism. They got good at mass violence, and they got better weapons to do that with. That's what they did. They took indigenous civilizations' weapons, and that's what's happening now. Hawaiians invented the submarine, and then Americans go, hey, let's make AUKUS and then spend $90 billion of money hurting our own people in Australia and America, because you should be spending on that military money on healthcare, housing, education, infrastructure, right? Let's hurt our people and hurt other people with all of these weapons of death and destruction that we stole from indigenous advanced civilizations. And then let's steal advanced technology that could empower, enable, and help people to live and help the environment and people to thrive, right? And educate and provide electricity, right? And then let's take those things, right? Let's take celebratory technology and make it into death and destruction. Because, motherfucker, it's either you or me, motherfucker. We're all gonna die. This win-lose mentality. That is the Western brain. That's like that's Roman brain. That's Greek brain. That's the Thucydides trap is actually, Athens and Sparta. Michael Hudson writes about this. It's a deeply Western way, which is like, one of us motherfuckers is gonna kill, enslave, pillage, and steal from the other one. Which one is it gonna be, right? That has been the way for the last several centuries, right? As there have been powers shifting hands, and when the British and French are close, there's a lot of war, there's a lot of fighting, right? America, and the interesting thing is actually doesn't always make sense, because America and Britain, there wasn't this huge burst of fighting and slaughtering and warring and trade war and hybrid war, Cold War, right? And millions of people losing their lives when Britain and America were changing power. That is quietly swept under the rug, which is part of the deeply untouched contradiction. Like, I don't want to say it's bigger than the primary contradiction, capitalism, but it is deeply unexamined secondary. But it's hard to say. It's deeply unexamined, very important contradiction, right? Called white supremacy, Western supremacy. Even Macron, I don't fucking like this, Holy Roman Emperor descendant, Holy Roman Emperor descendant with Louis Vuitton and Louis XIV characteristics called Emmanuel Macron. Fuck this guy, but he was correct, and he said these Anglo-Saxons, they are here to end the world. They are here to he's pissed off. Come on, France. You're over there. You just want to make $90 billion with the military-industrial complex. You're not sad because the world isn't liberated, because America is fighting endless, needless wars while their people are starving and going, 1,000 times more homeless than the Vietnamese. That's not what you're upset about. You're upset because you didn't get $90 billion of cashish from fucking the Pentagon. That's what you're upset about. Eisenhower's, nightmare come true. That's what Macron's upset about. Not milking that, tar and fossil fuel and nuclear radioactivity and central bank printing, quantitative easing infinity, now hyperinflating currency, cashish. You wanted that central bank printed military money, right? That's what you wanted. You want to milk that America cow, the big America teat. You want to suck on that, Justin Trudeau. That's what you wanted. You didn't really care about, but it is correct, because France and Britain. France and the Anglos, like what I like that it really. That's why I like Game of Thrones. Like there's at least the first few seasons until it went downhill. Because you see this is what it is, right? Those Anglo-Saxons, right? Nobody says Anglo-Saxons except very few people say that except the Europeans when they're talking to those descendants of the sick Cthulhu that is UK, which is what the United States, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. These are all descendants of the ugly, the festering diamond and Her Majesty's crown jewels and scepters, right? And thrones and tight little crumpet lips, right? That's the UK's children are America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, right? And it's like, you're an unfit mother, UK. That's what France is saying. Slap, right? You Anglo-Saxons, all you do is you and all of your little children, because France is older than all of the settler colonies, right? And France is kind of upset. Like, we want more of the Pacific. Why is it only we get Tahiti? We lost Vietnam. We want it back. Now, the solidarity between the U.S. and France as two Euro descendant barbarists, and they're like U.S. They're kind of like, okay, France, you take it back, because we definitely don't want indigenous Asian people. We all of the white supremacist world, all of the Euro barbarists have solidarity against the Asians. That's what they do. But then inside there's this internal fighting, which is like, one of us is gonna get the billions of dollars to blow this world up because one of us motherfuckers is gonna be on top. It sure as fucking gonna be Alstrom circa 2010s when they started to surpass. Even internally you don't see this, but they're all slapping each other. They're like, we're going to kidnap your executive of Alstrom for years and years and force you to sell your electrical energy company to General Electric because one of us motherfuckers is going to win. And as soon as you motherfuckers get the opportunity, you're going to do the same thing to us, right? That's Vosh, that's Peter Coffin, that's Lambach, that's all these white bullshit artists, white privilege defenders that are hurting themselves and all of their fellow people of all melanin counts in their dying empires. One of us motherfuckers are gonna hurt the other one. Who's it gonna be, right? One of us motherfuckers in this corporate office is gonna get the promotion. Who's it gonna be? I'm gonna fabricate a fictional story that you're cheating on the VP of marketing's wife, and the executive, the CEO. So I get to have the king's throne. I'm sorry, the corner office with the oak nameplate and the multi six-figure salary, right? That I can afford my rent with now, because all the other ones, how are you need some serfs. Like, America's running out of serfs, because all these cubicle offices, well, there's too much COVID and you can't fucking go to an office anymore, right? But you need, it's like you're having this kind of Gothic haunted office cubicle castles, right? Because of COVID, people don't want to die with other 700,000, dozens of Vietnam Wars worth of fucking dead Americans. They don't want to join the ranks of slaughtered serfs, right? So people want to go to the offices. You're gonna have to come up with some bigger incentive. Maybe like get free healthcare if you work in a shitty, concrete, polarized glass and steel girder money laundering scheme for the global, ruling financial oligarchy. Right? That's what cities in the West are. They're just places to store money that are not worth the fucking concrete and steel and the sawdust that they put in the foundation that's gonna fall down like the Surfrider Hotel, right? So you're gonna want more serfs to make it look like you're justified in having these buildings, the commercial real estate of the United States that's multi-trillions of dollars overvalued. And that will go with the rest of the financial crisis that will hit the United States when it's quantitative easing, infinity, mass money printing on the back of a world reserve currency, number one weapon of mass financial destruction that it uses. So that's really too bad that you can't get your serfs to show up to your office anymore. But serfs don't want to just, you got to tell the serfs that you got to get, like, I don't know, have Justin Trudeau and Biden come out and go like, COVID has what your body needs. Like, COVID has electrolytes, and electrolytes is what human bodies need and the plants need. Like, get COVID, then cough on your garden. Cough on the garden. Kill all the bees, and then just cough, COVID all over your little food garden. If you're like liberal and you want to talk about how we're gonna build a few renewable rooftop gardens, and we're gonna have a really nice little take a picture with some indigenous people that we pay $600,000 to pretend like we care about them. So I think there's ways that you could probably salvage this and get people to show up in your useless neo-feudal TPS report factories and useless email and money laundering facilities. That's what you do as an accountant in New York, San Francisco, in one of these glass towers, or professional brainwashing operations, right? The new Mad Men. That's you sit down and make some stupid ad, or I don't know, in BBC, the city of London is basically high frequency fraud. It's a giant cesspool of trafficking, money laundering for the world's biggest criminals, and the most the LSX, the London Stock Exchange, one of the most lax financial fraud and financial laws. And then you have professional lying about China by fabricating lies about Uyghur operations. But those people, I mean, even if you get paid, 50, 60, 70, 80, $100,000 a year to sit down and take a very nice preschool and grade school that has better water quality than the children in Hull in the UK, in the so-called great empire of the UK, and you go, oh my God, these suffering Uyghur children who have a better life expectancy now than a lot of people in the Western, even the advanced Western world, that have 2.5 times as many mosques as they did a few decades ago, that have a fastest growing demographic, the best approval of their government for COVID, and they're one of the lowest COVID death rates in a country that has how many cases today? Oh, 26. Let me do the math for you, because I don't know if they teach you math. I mean, usually America the West doesn't have an education system, but sometimes they teach you math. But in case you fail to learn math, 54% of the United States can't read at a junior high level. And I think a lot of them can't even do basic math. But that's, it's about, so 1.5 cases per 100 million, or so. It's about that, So they have 1.5 cases per 100 million. Congratulations to the United States on the hundreds of thousands of cases today. Congratulations to the Western world in continuing to fail, terminally, to ever deal with COVID-19. Thanks for the vaccine apartheid that will cause Epsilon, Delta, Delta, Epsilon, Omicron, and Vega variant. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for all of that planetary win-lose. It's actually really lose. I don't know how, how does, I guess Pfizer win, and it doesn't really help with the United States because you just look like a clown show and all your people can't show up to your fucking offices to justify overpriced, yoga class, Chase Bank, and Starbucks, skyscraper occupations. You can't justify the over-occupation of all the 80% of central bank printing that gets immediately stored in overpriced real estate, which is why China is destroying Evergrande, because it's part of what you have to do to stop the financial oligarchy from taking over and ascending to the commanding heights of economy and politics, which is what the United States and the entire Western world have always had, I would argue. So you wanna really think about how you can, I think COVID-19 is really a bad strategy. You gotta try to clean out the pharmaceutical, the Bill Gateses. You really gotta try to clean the profiteers that are that are lying. You gotta figure out a way to get rid of these anti-vax charlatans, the anti-science people. That's like half the entire population of the Western world. You really got to figure that out, because if you don't figure that out sooner, your empire's only gonna last maybe 2 more months. Never mind 7 years. You got 2 months. Which it will be sad for, Jamie Dimon, Lloyd Blankfein, Mr. Zuckerberg. It will be sad for you and Mr. Bezos. I just feel bad for you. Anyways, that's not really the grand chessboard, but I mean that is part of the grand chessboard. That is the Earth chessboard, which is being played out in real time, and the West is losing. But to get more specifically into Dune, because I haven't even talked about Dune specifically. It's a interesting story. The first eco science fiction novel. It's very important. Very boring. I remember when I read it, I was like, how the fuck did this win any awards? And why are we making movies that I can't fucking watch because it's boring as fuck? And I like a lot of David Lynch movies, but I fall asleep 3 times in each of the Dune movies. It's like, what is even happening here? I know what's happening here. It's just boring. It's just poorly written. I'm sorry if that hurts people's feelings, but mediocre, white, overprivileged dudes can get away with writing badly, and then I have to write for them as a ghostwriter and a hidden figure, not just in science, like the black women that disproportionately did the hardest post-Newtonian calculus and astrophysics calculations to put a white man on the moon, for mediocre white men who ran NASA and got bigger salaries than them and didn't have to go in the colored bathroom, right? And then Kevin Costner gets to show up like I'm some kind of white savior and save the black woman by taking a sledgehammer to a sign. And that's really brave of you, Kevin. But this book is actually not that good. I mean, I'm sorry. it's I mean, it's not bad, but it's like it's not like it's saying something bad. It's just like I was reading it and I'm like I couldn't really get into it, but a white guy wrote it and a lot of people celebrated it, and it was important to point out the problems of ecological collapse that were coming. And you know, it really is something that has just established itself in everybody's mind because some fucking white guy did it, basically. And that's okay, but that's what we got. That's what we got. But going forward, hopefully less people that have had to have their labor hidden, and non-white people, again, if you like Neofeud, that's one person. I did all of that fucking work. I mean, basically the writing, the music, art, the programming, not to like put myself on a pedestal, but I mean, like if there was 1,000 Silver Spooks, imagine what we would be doing, right? Imagine what you could do if you didn't have a handful of CEOs of CD Projekt, right? Taking billions of dollars, right? Not making video games, oppressing and vastly exploiting 100-hour a week, 12-hour a day programmers, artists, writers, and musicians at CD Projekt, wasting money as did we have that idea? Let's just throw that all away and make another game, right? Taking quantitative easing infinity money that is being thrust straight into the AAA rapidly growing industry, this with neo-feudal post-capitalism, as Giannis calls it, because you just like the military-industrial complex. It's the AAA game industrial complex that works with the U.S. military, like Call of Colonialism, that has a revolving door, executive board members going back and forth with DoD. Which war do you want me to start? And then they come back and they write brown or Asian peoples, usually Muslim peoples, but not exclusive. Now it's going to be like, I'm waiting for Battlefield 2042. Let's blow up China. I'm waiting for like Call of Colonialism 3. Call of Colonialism, new installation. The red, like the red scare. I mean, yellow red scare, like orange scare. Just call it orange scare. You have like, scary orange indigenous people and scary yellow peril and red China coming to the dragons coming for America. That's when I'm waiting for Call of Colonialism to put that out. The next AAA game that everybody plays, and the Marines, the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force match and double their recruiting goals. I'm using video games, which is the number one recruiting tool for the U.S. empire is video games, by the way, in those military sims. So I'm just waiting for that one. That's going to be horrible for everyone because everyone's going to keep dying and getting blown up in 90% innocent civilian drone strikes. And, that's just an illegal wars. But that's what they're going to do. That's what they're doing right now. I know people that work at AAA game companies. You should quit. Don't work at U.S. military, police, giant, U.S. corporations, Western corporations generally. Just if you can, if you could figure out a way to finagle that $1.2 million, $15,000 a month mortgage in San Francisco or New York, other than working for the military and the police. I know it's hard because almost every district in the United States is making F-22 Raptor nuts and bolts or doing advanced adversarial network programming for the next iteration of the Reaper and the robot dog $84,000 cop bot that's being retooled to, sick. Hey, Rex, go get that red communist in Vietnam when we invade it again. Because we want to make war in the South China Sea to do a Rand Corporation fucking think tank unhinged plan to win the Brzezinski game of the losing chessboard game. It's a losing game. Anyways, so I cannot even talk about Dune. But Dune is a book that was written. The end. Dune is a book that is a white savior story, period. Because it's written by a white man in the 1960s, in 1950s, 1960s. That's a normal thing for them to do. I don't expect anything other than that. And it's a story that is in a distant future amidst a feudal interstellar society, which various noble houses control planetary fiefs, because neo-feudalism in space is the only thing that white guys from the United States neo-feudal shitscape can't imagine, which is normal. It tells a story of Paul Atreides, whose family accepts the stewardship of the planet Arrakis. I find that, stop misusing the word stewardship, accepts the colonization of the planet Arrakis, like you always do. The United States is the steward of Hawaii. We're just caring for the indigenous people. When was the last time a Western feudal imperial society stewarded any non-white or stewarded anybody, period? Even though did Louis XIV steward his Protestants, right? When the fuck did they steward anything? They never stewarded anyway. I'm gonna stop being upset about that misusage of this word, and this nonsensical story. While the family accepts the stewardship of the planet Arrakis, while the planet is an inhospitable and sparsely populated desert wasteland, it is the only. What did the United States steward Afghanistan? Is that what you did there? Were you stewarding Libya, right? When Justin Trudeau takes a hashtag reconciliation picture with a bunch of Cree and Anishinaabe people in a sweat lodge and says, it's the year of the indigenous people and we are going to do reconciliation, right? And then he does, and then he turns around and sues them with $100 million worth of lawfare. There's no such thing as law in the West. Lawfare, legal warfare against them to stop residential school genocide survivors under United Nations actual multiple investigators official declaration with 200 line items to begin reconciliation. And Canada hasn't done 9 and is doing more damage every fucking day, kidnapping children, force inserting IUDs into 9-year-old Indigenous girls as we speak, and then saying Adrian Zen's like, oh, what's Canada doing to Indigenous people in Canada? Oh, that's what China's doing to Uyghur. I'm just gonna lift that because that's Germany gave him a degree, by the way. So thanks a lot, Germany, for giving Adrian Zenz a accredited college degree in statistics, and thanks a lot for the victims of communism in the United States for giving him a job writing war propaganda and consent manufacturing bullshit to start Iraq 2.0. Good job. Thanks a lot for that. Anyways, while the planet is inhospitable and sparsely populated on Arrakis desert wasteland, it is the only source of the melange or the spice, a drug that extends life and enhances mental abilities. Melange is also necessary for space navigation, which requires a kind of multidimensional awareness and foresight that only the drug provides. A melange can only be produced in Arrakis. To control the planet is thus a coveted and dangerous undertaking. Your story explores the multi-layered interactions of politics, religion, ecology, technology, human emotions, as the factions of the Empire confront each other in the struggle for the control of Arrakis and its spice. Which, I mean, that sounds fine on its face. But, if you don't know the story of the plot of Dune, I'm not going to give you the whole freaking thing. But what most troubles me about, like watching the Dune trailer, again, I'm going to say, you want to watch that show, it's fine. But it's important to understand the meta narratives, like, as I was saying on Mexi's stream, you have to decompartmentalize reality. There's no such thing as politics here, entertainment there, right? Business here and pleasure there, right? Oh, business is when I go to my Goldman Sachs high frequency trading algorithm department and jack up the price of rice in Northern Africa to $100 a grain to cause starvation and with the backing of U.S. sanctions and U.S. military threat. And then, but it's okay because I'm just making a market, right? I'm just following the Gaussian copula curve and mean value theory, and I'm just here with the great moderation called United States circa 2006 in Wall Street. It's just business, and if kids starved, LIBOR rate rigged that caused global dislocations, economic turmoil that killed untold thousands, and pushed everybody back into de-development with all of my horrible sanctions. I just accidentally fucking got 500,000 Iraqis killed with Madeleine Albright circa 1990s with the fucking sanctions against Iraq. I mean, they deserved it. Madeleine Albright said, well, it was worth it. It was worth it because U.S. got its hegemony continued. So that's business, though. That's Madeleine Albright going to D.C. and just business. That's not moral. I like it. I like it when Westerners kind of bring that to the front of the guy. That's not politics. That's just business. That's just my job, right? When I go to my Goldman Sachs, when I go and pilot that drone, I'm just doing my job that blows up those children, and I'm aiming at Reuters journalists coming out of van and just shooting people, laughing and giggling away, and then Chelsea Manning go to prison when the truth comes out because it's embarrassing. And that's just business. I'm just a lawyer and a judge working for the United States Empire. I'm sorry, standing up for rights, freedom, and democracy and transparency as a United States judges and lawyers we're just doing our job here, throwing innocent people that are saying true things into prison and solitary confinement and torture for indefinite periods of time. That's just business. It's just been the judge, the lawyer, the journalist, the soldier pulling the trigger, they're counted. The lawyers that are on the aircraft carrier fighting over whether this is legal or not, which is all bullshit. That's what we know from the Meng Wanzhou case. There's no such thing as law in the West. It's just whatever we say and we put out as a legal fiction to, I like this quote that KJ No brought up today, which is that where is it? Yeah, I just wrote it down. Yeah, the Meng Wanzhou case, imported fraud charge from the U.S. It was an imported fraud. Imported. This is not like importing silk and tea on the back of fucking opium dumping into the bodies of Asian people by the billions of them. Ultimately, this is not. You can't import law. But anyway, in Meng Wanzhou case, it was imported fraud charges from the U.S. 3 years of prosecutorial judicial misconduct, selective prosecution, hiding of exculpatory evidence. Every legal misconduct in the book basically was visited upon Miss Wangzhou. And this entire case was invented legal fiction that allowed the judge, the Canadian judge, not even the American, the Canadian judge in this case, to bypass law. The legal fiction is to justice what swindling is to trade. It affords conclusive evidence of moral turpitude of those who invent it. And if this legal fiction is a syphilis that runs into every vein, carries itself throughout the system in which it invades. I would argue that there's never been any law. It's always been syphilis. It's been syphilis. Sometimes it's black plague. Sometimes it's bubonic plague. Sometimes it's the brain COVID. It's the Voltairean. The Voltaire accurately described brain COVID AS1137. That's capitalism. Adam Smith, Western barbarism variant 1137. Sometimes it's the Yellenian, Janet Yellen, JY, the Western barbarism brain virus, JY13665 is called Neofeudal post-capitalism, where you just print money and you crash 737s and then you give you don't produce things for value, sell them, and then make revenue minus the labor costs and the product and the production costs. You don't make anything. You just throw money at dying companies. That's called Neofeudal post-capitalism. The Romans kind of figured this out, in the very beginning. Like, let's just auction off bits of our concrete and let's just eat up all of our own working class until there's nothing left, and then they let the Visigoths and everybody up from the let the barbarians in. Like, we're very civilized here, We're very civilized here, but that's very important. It's this throwing at other people. It's throwing out there, just saying, because I have the biggest megaphone, right? There's no such thing as freedom of speech. There's only freedom of white male and especially rich white male speech. That's the only speech that they allow. Because if you're an indigenous person saying, please fucking respect international law, they're like, shut the fuck up, get off of our fucking mountain, or we'll blow you up with a fucking B-52 bomber like on Mauna Kea, right? Shut the fuck up, get off of the land. Well, this is the tree. We just want you to shut the fuck up, indigenous person, get off of the land that we stole and then signed the treaty, and then we violated it and violated the law fucking 20,000 times, and fuck you. Shut up. Shut up, Breonna Taylor. We delete you off of Twitter. There's no such thing as freedom of speech. It's a joke. There's only the speech is very expensive. It costs multi-$100 billion executives owning the entire corporation that maintains the ability for people to interact with each other in their friend networks, especially under COVID, where you have to be remote and teleconferencing, telecommuting, teledating, and everything, and they control every point of communication. So this is nonsensical. This is nonsensical. And so if you have the biggest microphone of speech, you just say, Meng Wanzhou is a criminal. Shut the fuck up, everyone who says otherwise. And if you say otherwise, you're a genocide denier, you're a CCP shill, you're a member of the Justin Trudeau, Xi Jinping puppeted conspiracy to undo the great patriotic left and center and right. And you should vote him out. That's why Meng Wanzhou had to come out after, in the coordinated, theatrically programmed trade of the two Michaels, as based African actual leftist journalist Andre Domis has said, Canada, you can breathe free the air of freedom and freedom and liberty and democracy now that Canada has just the right amount of Michaels. Anyway, very, very good. Well met, sir. Anyways. But you just put it out there. You say they're a criminal, right? You just say all black people in hoodies are criminals, right? And you just have multi-trillions of dollars worth of cop shows. 50% of all American-produced Hollywood shows, and shows generally, LAPD, NYPD, Hawaii Five-0, Hawaii Five-0 2.0, fucking Magnum PI fucking 2.0, 3.0, right? You got Torchwood, you got fantasy, sci-fi cops in Torchwood, you got Kid Cops, Paw Patrol. You got, NYPD Blue. You got your New York cops. You got your progressive, liberal, fake left AOC squatty cops like, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You got Jewish cops, women cops, black cops, brown cops, Asian cops, gay cops, straight cops, gay black police chief cops, old cops, young cops, all being funny and then catching criminals on a regular basis. Not, committing more felonies than the average United States citizen. With 2/5 of the New York City literally being sexually harassed, raped, or abused by a cop, stealing more than all burglars in the United States combined, with stealing cash straight out of people's pockets, taking their personal property out of their houses with no other reason than I'm a cop and I have a fucking badge. So anyways, you just blast it out there. And the best way to blast it is not by saying cops are good, cops are good, cops are good, cops are good all over, the nightly news, right? The nightly news does it participates in this by going, look, good cop arresting 6'2" black man down in Los Angeles right before Rodney King getting his fucking head smashed in on camera. Here's a nice good cop in New York City stopping a dark mugger in a city, and we're gonna get tough on crime, right? But then also more importantly is the media, and you just blast it out there that look at all these really relatable police that are really enforcing a lot of laws, and all these TV shows that you know and love, including Dana Scully, including Fox Mulder. The FBI has 330,000 documents on black identity as terrorism, but these are good cops. They're funny, science fictional, very witty cops. He's a Jewish, smart cop that I find very entertaining. I like David Duchovny. He did a good job in X-Files. And Deus Ex is a cyberpunk, really cool game that uses the same, lifts the same conspiratorial, Fortean phenomena, black helicopters, Illuminatus grift, Illuminatus kind of pop culture that's in the X-Files. But he's a cop also. I think Deus Ex is a little bit better because the main cop in that one, as a enforcer for the United Nations counterterrorism organization, he basically is, he figures out that he works for the bad guys. But most cop shows, you got to show cops as good, And anyways, and you got to show the other people as bad. That's part of the legal fiction is the entertainment fiction, right? And because again, you can't separate entertainment from politics. This is the Chinese have figured this out. That's why 3 hours a week of Call of Duty and massively online multiplayer games that are full of microtransactions, loot boxes, and all the things that Commander Stephanie Sterling accurately points out on a regular basis, right? You cannot separate politics, entertainment, culture, your values, your spirituality. I mean, you have religious freedom, but you cannot say, oh, my religious freedom allows me to back fascists in Vietnam and try to overthrow it, because that's what the U.S. will always say. There's no religious freedom. There's no religious freedom because you didn't let NED-funded fucking spies and color revolution fomenters operate in your country. That's but Americans buy that because there's no education system in the West. And they also are compartmentalized and they can't see how all this is interlinked. And they can't see how their terrible fucking movies like The Hulk, which rebranded one of its American military's biological and chemical warfare projects. And the U.S. military actually forced the studio to change its script in the Hulk. It was one of the Freedom of Information Act requests that was discovered. This is just one of thousands and thousands of the U.S. doctoring scripts to make sure that it makes the U.S. military look good. Basically, asking Hollywood to lie and manufacture consent of the U.S. military like a light on the shining hill, as opposed to the literal Emperor Palpatine with the Star Destroyers, Death Stars, Stormtroopers, and AT-AT walkers crushing the Earth, right? But that's the Hollywood, the TV shows, the movies, the entertainment, the media, the universities, even all of the most of the working class is bought into the military because all the jobs and their pension, the 401k is fucking tied up with making parts for a Tomahawk missile. And so everybody's a stormtrooper in the United States. Sadly, it's sad, very sad. In Canada too, including all of its judges, courts, lawyers, entertainers, marketers, accountants, a lot of the science, sadly, you fucking molecule contorters to figure out how to make fentanyl better and better, to narco traffic into American mouths, which you did to Chinese mouths because we're running out of Asian mouths to narco traffic into, to pillage them from their wealth. So now 90,000 people have died this year from fentanyl, opioid overdoses. Very sad, but normal thing to do when you think that the only way to go about things is to win-lose. Like, somebody's got to take the processed Afghan heroin that we have been trafficking into Chinese mouths. And if the Chinese aren't going to take it because they have fucking power now and ability to stop themselves from being polluted and plundered on the back of the destroyed, addicted, roofied bodies, then we're going to fucking shove it in American mouths. And so that's why America, you get to be eaten this decade and this for the foreseeable future. You will be destroyed. Very sad. Kishore Mahbubani points out the white working class is in fact the fastest declining life expectancy. Not that I, well, why do we give a no, it's sad. It is sad. It's sad that you are going to keep killing yourself. As long as you don't get behind decolonization line back and become actually revolutionary and support, try to undo and negate the primary and secondary and tertiary contradictions simultaneously, rather than allow the secondary contradictions, right? A race, colonizer, colonized, gender, etc., and just allow them to fester to stop any united working class from undoing, the things that the Chinese did with Mao, and to kick their and the Vietnamese did to kick their colonizers out and their landlords out, right? Including Luna's grandpa lost, like land back means like it does mean that like there's some Hawaiians that will, everybody will be brought into more equal relationships with each other. It won't be perfect. We will never have any perfect civilizations, but we will be brought into more, and some people will lose, but most people who will lose will not be the average middle class person. Well, I should say, like, it's internally, everybody will. No, you're not going to lose because the Vietnamese and the Chinese both are living at better levels of actual existence than the average American, right? Even the average middle class white American does not have solid access to quality healthcare that isn't in jeopardy of bankrupting themselves, right? They don't have access to the amount of dignified housing with clean water and electricity without it being like precarious, right? As it is in United States. What you have a little ice, you have a PG&E, you have a wildfire, you don't have electricity anymore. The grid explodes because private equity firm decided to liquidate it all with a collateralized dead Texan obligation. You don't have the security. You don't have, even as a white middle class person, even a dude, I would argue, you don't have access to a healthcare system that isn't trying to murder you for profit, like the Sacklers did. You're gonna get killed by your healthcare system. This is so sad. That's what they don't have over there. So it will help everybody. It will help everybody out to have the to get on that side of full radical solidarity with all people, and to it doesn't mean like as Luna points out, there everything is identity politics. When white people go, we're gonna make great this white race, and America. When Donald Trump, when you say don't talk about any identity, that is identity politics. By saying we're never gonna talk about that, you're saying that's that you cannot. There will never be no identity politics. Identity politics. There's either left identity politics or there is liberal identity politics. It's like let's ignore capitalism and only like and pretend like that's not a problem, right? But that's not the same as we have to address historical and continuing wrongs against indigenous people, against the colonized people, against people, non-white people, or people that are currently identified as that, against women, against LGBTQ plus communities, against all these other things. We have to address simultaneously all of these contradictions, and not allow the ruling class to play these off of each other, and they will continue to do this, and so. But just ignoring them and just going, well, let's just only talk about class, right? Only talk about class. That doesn't fix these historical wrongs, right? So we have to, So anyway, Luna has a whole article about that I really recommend anybody read if you have some time, because it really does go into a lot of detail about how it's specifically about land back, decolonization struggles, indigenous and colonizer struggles, and how all of these and how racism and whiteness have to be dealt with, negated, attacked, dismantled, simultaneous to struggle against capitalism and class struggles in a way that's much clearer than I can with like not enough hours of sleep. Anyways, so Dune, in this, back to Dune. In Dune, you have like these massive feudal houses, and you have, but it's the thing that would really struck me was when I realized you have the main house, Atreides, right? it's very Western white coded. You have non-white people playing characters, but it's basically a Western coded sort of empire with feudal structures internally, but and then you have, and they're like good. They're like the protagonist, the main character, Paul is the descendant, right? Who is there to learn how to be a great leader, right? He's the Duke Leto Atreides of House Atreides, the ruler of the ocean planet Caladan, is assigned by the anyway, I'm not gonna read the whole plot, but basically Paul is the descendant. Paul is being trained. Duncan, Idaho, is played by Jason Momoa, trained in warfare, and he has elite soldiers. They prepare him for cunning political maneuvers, and they also train him in other. He's basically like the best soldier, the best warrior, trained with psionic, telepathic powers. It's the Star Warsian science fantasy kind of stuff going on there. Star Wars borrowed a lot from Dune. Prophetic dreams interest Jessica Spear, the Reverend Mother, Gaius, Helen, Moyam. Anyways, I'm just trying to like browse through this script, the plot. Paul traveled to so he goes to the planet of the Freemen, right? Arrakis, and which has this spice, right? This very valuable substance, right? Protected by giant sandworms, negotiates with the planet's native freemen. They're like the indigenous people of that planet, seeing them as a valuable ally rather than foes. After the arrival, the Harkonnen forces attack. The Harkonnen is the bad people. They're like the bad space westerners, right? There's the good space western empire, and then there's the bad space western empire, right? The good one is the Atreides and Paul, right? Who bring freedom. They help the free men become more free, right? They bring freedom and justice and prosperity to the galaxy, right? And they're on the right side of history, They're like, they're a little misguided. They sometimes have a handful of not so good politicians, right? But they're basically like Western liberal democratic, or they're feudal, but Western liberal, very, very, successful, very white civilization, right? And we're just here to help people out. We're just going down there. We're going to go and we're going to help these people in this desert. We're going to learn from them. We're going to listen to them, and we're going to liberate this indigenous people of this desert planet, the free men, right? And then there's the evil Harkonnen, right? The Harkonnen Emperor First, the Sardaukar troops. Leto is betrayed by his personal physician. I'm not gonna give you all. I don't need to give you all the script, but so the Harkonnens are like, you have to kill all of those indigenous people, right? You have to kill all those indigenous people, kill all the free men. In the trailer, the run up to the Dune, 4-minute preview. There's a scene where it is, I think it's Skarsgård, Skarsgård. It's one of the Skarsgård, the daddy Skarsgård, the one from Thor, and Dave Bautista is the son, and they're this huge like blob like Jabba the Hutt like kind of gross, very pale person that's like in a floating chair, and he's like literally luxuriating in an oil bath. It's like oil slick. He's like gross and disgusting, kind of like Emperor Palpatine like, Darth Vader like, sickly, pallid, gross, and like despotic, authoritarian, horrific, a terror. Not just, right? Not liberal, not Western, not liberal, not democratic. I should leave the democratic out because it's all feudal. But he's the gross, bad version of Western space empire, right? Because they're all empire. They have like multiple planets under their control, and they're just a kindly steward. We're just very nicely stewarding these nice indigenous people, right? That's not a thing that the Western empires do. That's a nice lie about Africa. That's a very let's all sing a song, a Bono song for Africa and all their San people and all of their Ewoks in Asia and Vietnam. Let's sing a song for the Tibet, Free Tibet, everybody. Let's sing a song and raise money. Let's do an aid for Africa. Like, let's just UK and America and Canada aid Africa, right? Helping them out, not taking $152 trillion from Africa and the rest of the global south over the last 7 years with the Western aid. But we, the West and the United Nations, all the G7 and the G20 countries of the free world, right? Because this is, what is this? This is happening in the Cold War, right? We are here to help Africa. We are here to help the Sand people, the free men living in the deserts of Afghanistan, of Iraq, right? Of Iran. We are here to free you, not to stop you from getting millions of people's worth of food and medicine and COVID-19 vaccines, and then sanctioning Chinese cooperative 98,000 worker-owned 5G tech companies trying to get you. No. The United States and the West is here to save the free men of the desert. Right? We're here to liberate you from the bad, evil, despotic, authoritarian, brainwashed, right? Sick. They're sick. They're like the sick, pallid Asian men, because Russia is actually mostly in Asia, and so is China. The sick, disgusting rulers of the Harkonnen are here to slaughter you all. That's what we're here. That's what they're here for. They're gonna kill all the free men. And they order in the preview. That's what he ordered. In the story, that's what happens too. They're a brutal, authoritarian regime. This communist. I'm sorry, space Asian, gross. Emperor Palpatine, pallid, red-eyed, always in capes. Everybody wears the same fucking color because it's sad and Asian. Sad and Asian and authoritarian, And they have tanks. They have lots of tanks. Oh, actually, we have more tanks than them, actually. But no, they have the bad tanks. The tanky tanks are going to run over you. In space, Eastern, authoritarian, despotic, Asian empire. Right? And Harkonnen, his name is, the ruler is Baron. What is his name? Vladimir Harkonnen, right? And so why don't you call, I think Emperor Palpatine's name was, at least you coded the Cold War, anti-Soviet propaganda, the anti-communist propaganda, at least at the time, was coded with, what is his name? Shives Palpatine. That's not Russian, at least, right? I mean, don't fucking throw it out there that you hate anything Eastern and even labeled communist, however good and bad it is, but don't you at least Star Wars calls it like disgusting, sick, authoritarian Asian country, right? And then you don't call it like fucking Vladimir. It's not Vladimir Palpatine, right? That's just so on the, speaking of so on the nose. I mean, if you want to cloak your fucking anti-Asian racism and your anti-communist rhetoric backed by Ayn Rand, who wrote the Motion Picture Association Organization for the Preservation of American Values, which number one anti-communist Ayn Rand literally wrote the screen guide for Hollywood and they followed it for the last 1,000 years. Literally, that said, always depict the free enterprise, always put capital and privilege it, never show the common man cooperating and working together as a solution to problems. Ayn Rand wrote Hollywood's guide, and by extension, all of the Star Wars as well, which they followed it pretty well. Nobody figured out that it was the Vietnamese represented by the rebellion, but that's because George Lucas is a coward and a failure. He only brought it up in 2004 that the Ewoks represented the Vietnamese, and that was, nobody picks up on this because everything is coded for Western white liberal democracies, or, Disney codes princesses. This is what I always find interesting, because Disney has princesses, right? But Americans love the princesses, right? Because America isn't a democracy. America is feudal, hiding, and it puts its kings and queens and princesses and it's Bezos and its Zuckerbergs and their children, the kings and queens and princes and princesses, on shadow thrones of stacked $100 bills to the height of stadiums. Like, picture Walter White sitting on stacks of Benjamins covered in other people's blood and narco trafficking, or meth trafficking, and the crystal blue 99.9999999% pure product that he has, because that's what all the CIA's Afghan money is covered in. 169 million falling out of a briefcase, splattering on the tarmac, with Mr. Ghani, the U.S. neoliberal puppet, fleeing the country as Afghan Asians are falling out of the sky to their death, right? he's covered in that same stuff. And so it's always this idea of Asian despotism, right? Asian. I've talked about this a lot on these streams, but and Vladimir Harkonnen is the bad empire, the bad one, the really evil one, And then there's the good. We're not an empire. We're just like we're like a commonwealth. Dominion sounds bad. We're not an empire. We're a what are we? We are a World Bank. We're a World Trade Organization. We're a international monetary fund. We are like we're empowering you with high quality finance to build schools, houses, roads, infrastructure, telecom, 5G. Oh, did we say that? Actually, we're going to privatize your entire grid and force you into de-development, and you're going to have 600 million people pushed into poverty in Africa. But I mean, we're definitely not an empire. We're definitely not an empire. But also we worship princesses and queens and shit. But because the reason about why Disney puts out princesses and queens and kings, because America is shadow feudal and they love princesses and they love those stories. Because they want to go back to that. They want to return to full feudalism. They're just sad that they can't have techno kings come out and just declare themselves CEO/king of, I don't know, Tesla, SpaceX. Oh, I'm sorry, Elon did that. Oops. Should have kept your mask on longer until you defeated China, but you never will. Anyway, so when so Vladimir Harkonnen though, it's just like you're making this. It's so fucking obvious what they're doing. You should at least call him just spell it backwards, like Rimedalv. Call him Rimedalv. Fucking Vladimir, really? Just like Russian Empire, Rimedalv. Anyways, so Harkonnen is he's a sick, disgusting, tumor-ridden, is just like gross old man. And he's got his son that's played by Dave Bautista. I love Dave Bautista. Dave Bautista also in Blade Runner 2049. I love his character Sapper Morton. It's Blade Runner 2049 has a lot more you fought in Calantha, right? Dave Bautista is a warrior, as a medic, created as a military manufactured product by Tyrell Industries. A Nexus 8 or the Nexus series soldier bot, but he's specifically a medic to fight interstellar colonial wars on Calantha. I like that part. It's like, and that was terrible. And now I'm defecting to support the undoing of the empire that produced, for-profit manufactured synthetic sentient beings like myself to go commit horrors, in space Vietnam and space Iraq and space Afghanistan. And so I like that character a lot, Dave. And so, again, this has nothing to do with who is in the movie. It's nothing to do with, whether the movie's good or not, or even Denis Villeneuve's directing prowess. This is just like, I'm talking about the politics that's in every Western entertainment, fiction and nonfiction. But in this one, Dave is being sent by his uncle. I think his Uncle Vlad, right? So his uncle is sending him to go kill and exterminate indigenous people, and to, of course, fight Mr. Atreides, who is who? Who is the Western American white protagonist coded good guy saving the space, all of the galaxy, right? We're gonna, there's some problems in the, in Atreides, but we are the good guys. We're gonna go into Afghanistan, Iraq. We're gonna go into Libya, right, and help them out into the desert people, the indigenous desert people's planet. And we're going to help them out, and we're going to lead them. We're going to lead them to freedom. That's what America's going to do. That's what the US is going to do. That's what Canada and the UK and Australia, that's what AUKUS is going to do, right? That's what we're going to go into Afghanistan, and we're going to lead them to freedom. The free men. Is that what the US has done? Is that what you've done? What has Russia and China done for the world? What have they done? Oh, that's right. They're building roads. Oh, that's right. They're giving multi-billions of dollars of forgiven loans to Africa, several billion to Cuba, and assisted them with COVID-19 vaccines along with Vietnam. What are they doing? Oh, that's right. They're building roads and infrastructure to trade and getting electrical get electricity with Akon to tens and millions, and if not, it's soon hundreds of millions of people who never had it before in Africa. What did the Atreides do? Again, I think that Harkonnen is a terrible attack on Eastern communism and Eastern just generally. It's a Cold War era, which is China was one of these targets. I don't think it's accurate at all. But if Atreides is the West, what have they done for the desert people? What have they done for the Arrakis? If Arrakis is the space metaphor for the desert regions of Earth, which, it's a white man hanging out in Iran, probably hanging out with the CIA, trying to figure out how they're gonna fucking start a coup there, right? It's a white man, right, reading about America going to help liberate Afghanistan with the Mujahideen and fund extremist terrorism and warlords. It's a white man reading about fucking, how we're gonna go and help Palestine out, right, by backing a settler colonial genocidal little puppet down there to kill and slaughter and be our little spearhead to break up the rebuilding of the Silk Road and global indigenous advanced civilization led win-win cooperative trade, which that's what the Middle East is. That's what we're there for. That's what you're there for, I should say. And it's a white man reading all this bullshit that his empire is actually doing in the desert regions. Because America, World War II, a lot of it is the European theater, right? Fighting in France, Omaha Beach, mountains and mountains of dead, blood-soaked bodies and all of these incinerated peoples in ovens and killed and slaughtered in other terrible ways in Poland, in the Warsaw ghettos, in Nazi Germany, and in Nazi the entire Western world. It's all fucking fascist. And then in some of the Pacific. But now, where is the West? Where is the Brzezinski grand chessboard, barbarian clowns turning to, right? Where are they turning to, right? Where is the Marshall Plan and all of the red team, blue team, panda hugger, panda sluggers looking at right now, right? What are they looking at? Oh, that's right. They're looking at the desert regions of Earth to do what? Now that we're in the Cold War, we're not fighting this. We're not backing fascists, right? In Europe, as the United States did. We're not supporting the Italian fascists as Mr. Churchill did, and then it backfiring eventually. And then America parachuting into Germany to say they had boots on the ground when the war was won. They didn't win shit. They fucking supported the Nazis. Ford sued the United States government for billions of dollars of losses because U.S. bombs blew up his factories in Nazi Germany that were making Nazi guns, Nazi bullets, Nazi tanks, Nazi planes. Ford won that lawsuit because the U.S. and the West is fascist to the core. And then they offloaded onto Trump or Hitler. But we're not fighting in Europe anymore. We're fighting in the desert now, and we're going to be using what? We're going to be using the free men. We're going to be using Eastern Turkestan Islamic movement, right? To liberate who? To liberate Afghanistan, right? To foment, as Sybil Emmons, FBI whistleblower, said, every extremist attack, all the chaos and violence in Eastern Afghanistan and in the Xinjiang region was funded and supported by the United States, and then she was sued by the FBI. Do not talk about it, because you can't say two things in the West. We're going to support the free East Turkestan Islamic movement to liberate them against who? Against Russia and against China. We're going to support the Mujahideen. We're going to support ISIS. We're going to support, or when it helps us, we support them, and then when it doesn't, we do. We're going to make Osama bin Laden, and he's going to blow up our tower, and then we're going to go back and now we got to go spend $21 trillion getting all those sand N-words that hit our symbol of freedom and democracy called the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. The story of Dune is a story of Western barbarism and global violence and empires in the mid-20th century, post-World War II, pivoting into the Middle East, and a white guy writing a boring book, making America and the Western powers look like they're the good guys when they absolutely never were and never will be. Period. That's what Dune's actually about. It's a story. It's a white savior story. It's a white supremacist, neo-feudal, capitalist, racist, colonial, genocidal, slave-back, rule of law free, democracy free shitscape called the entire Western world, getting a PR airbrushing in the mid 20th century by some mediocre white writer who should have hired a black or a brown woman or non-man or person to write a better story than he did, you know, because fucking God, Frankie Herbert, you're fucking terrible at writing. So that's what that story actually is. And, you know, I mean, it's sad, but that's a normal thing for the West to do, is to write shitty fucking stories that lie about everything that they're doing in the Middle East in the mid 20th century. And then Asian communist country code the bad guy and then say that they're the one doing all the horror and killing all the innocent people. I mean, not to say that they didn't do any bad things. I mean, especially, you know, there's problem. But I mean, who's the primary contradiction here? The people that are fucking aiding and supporting Cuba, or the people that are fucking sanctioning $130 billion worth of Cuban medicine, food, electrical infrastructure, roads, streets? Who the fuck is the Harkonnens here, right? Why is it Vladimir Harkonnen? It should be George Harkonnen. It should be, you know, Bill Harkonnen. It should be fucking Obama Harkonnen. It should be, you know, Nixon Harkonnen. It should be John F. K. Harkonnen. Why is it Vladimir Harkonnen? It's because the West is a fucking shitscape live factory. That's why it is. And that's what Dune is. So, I mean, I'm sure it'll be a really entertaining and fun movie. I'm not saying don't watch it, but I'm saying that's what this fucking story is about. Never start a land war in Asia, right? Never, what is it? Never lie to a Sicilian, right? Remember Princess Bride? Never start a land war in Asia. Dune is about Hollywood executives palling around with generals and military industrial complex leaders and all the marshals and all of the fucking military industrial complex, like hanging out together, right? In Hollywood, because Hollywood is, all their scripts are doctored by the Pentagon. And then some general's like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to start a land war in Asia to thwart the return of the Silk Route with the grand chessboard and Brzezinski's heartland theory to stop the Eurasian continent from building win-win mutual cooperative trade all the way down into Africa and returning the world to what it was like before the centuries of colonization from centering in Western Europe. And we're going to stop that by doing what? By backing free, and we're going to do it with we're going to do this new thing, because we're not going to mask off, just go and slaughter everyone and call everyone N-words and Asian, sick, backward, yellow monkey. We're not going to be racist and mask off. We're going to do this new thing. It's called backing free peoples, talking about human rights, right? And the Western, what is, you know what the United Nations definition of genocide is, right? Remember what it is? It's the thing that civilized nations do not do. And who are the civilized nations? The United States, UK, Canada, France, Australia, Japan. Oh, they definitely didn't mass kill any Chinese people, right? And the US definitely didn't support any fascists that slaughtered the Chinese that Mao had to fuck up and then actually build an advanced indigenous socialist-led Chineseism with socialist characteristics, or socialism with Chinese characteristics, depending on who you talk to. But, you know, it's that's ultimately, you know, at the highest level, that's what this story is about. It's mid 20th century grand chessboard, human rights, neocolonialism. That you should get a better word. Don't call it neocolonialism. Well, I guess neocolonialism is what people that are trying to criticize would call it. But, you know, human rights, freedom, democracy, and free world expansion policies against the dark, authoritarian, non-rules-based order, right? Communist, democracyless, freedomless, human rights violating, anti-women, anti-LGBTQ+, I'm not saying that every one of these countries that I have named, that they've been like the best again for supporting women's rights and all these things at all times. But the United States is not a force for support of any kind of freedom. But that's why they're called the free men in this story, because that's not because Frank Herbert is a bad guy. I think his book was boring. But I mean, I think, again, just as the people who made StarCraft, which is a colonizer simulator, right? Where you go to an indigenous planet, the Zerg's planet, you kill everything in your sight, right? To take on the indigenous planet to harvest the minerals, the coltan, the copper, you know, out of a Congo, space Congo, the lithium for Elon Musk, whoever he wants, Germany and US-backed lithium coup. You take the minerals from the indigenous people, you take the people that are there, whoever it is, you take the Vespene gas, that's hydrocarbon in the core canon in the StarCraft wiki. Vespene gas is an advanced hydrocarbon. It's natural gas and oil, It's the spice that Mr. Atreides of Earth is actually trying to get out of the Middle East to this day. We taking the oil. So, so StarCraft is you get the Vespene gas, you get the minerals, and you build battle cruisers. Aircraft carriers. You build AT-AT walkers. You build siege tanks or, Northrop Grumman tanks. And then you build marine flamethrowers, firebats, and AR-15s and guns and arms, right? For all your fighters. Pulse rifles. You build nuclear weapons for the Ghost to shoot at people. You build race. You build stealth jets. You build F-22 Raptors, right? Stealth space jets. And then you take all the weapons that you made with all the minerals you've stolen from the people that you just slaughtered. And then you kill everyone there. And then you build more warships to go to the next place, and you kill everyone there, and you take all their minerals and resources, you colonize them, you go to the next place. And so I don't think that's because the mid-90s Blizzard programmers, artists, writers, and game designers are just fucking horrible people. They're just following the deeply imprinted through fiction, nonfiction, entertainment, culture, politics, water cooler conversations in the Blizzard room, and sadly the Cosby room, which is full of sexual exploitation and disgusting rape culture, which is normal. That's just Western culture and white man culture. Which it shouldn't be. I mean, we hope one day we don't have that kind of terrible things in AAA game companies, but that's a normal thing. That abuse is rampant in these companies. And it's not because they're that's just what they have. They're surrounded by, hey, did you hear the news today? This Naira girl is on camera crying profusely, and it's so terrible. She's crying because children in incubators are being ripped out of the incubators by these horrible, despotic people that America wants to blow up, and they're being thrown out of the incubators. And we have America, feel it in your heart. Human rights. Just feel for the free men and the free Naira relatives in the Gulf. And we, Blizzard employees are sitting around and they're watching that and they're going, we have to go and save those people with Jim Raynor. And we got to send a white man in there, a white trooper, and maybe some token black and brown and Hispanic troopers. You send them in there, and we're going to liberate those babies in the incubators so that no bad, dark, despotic, ruthless, slaughtering, torturing, debased, debaucherous, deceitful Asian people hurt those nice Asian people ever again. And also we'll take some of their minerals and make some more weapons to defend more people, right? Because as Obama said, the United States, unlike, what is Obama's quote? Obama said, the greatest liar who body surfed at my favorite Hawaii beach. Don't disgrace my beach with your fucking lying body. Anyways, the United States, unlike previous empires, right? What is his exact quote? Yeah. I can't find it. Yeah, so basically what he said was, the United States, unlike previous empires, unlike the British Empire, the French Empire, the United States doesn't invade and fight wars and go into other countries for conquest, for resources, and for bad reasons. The United States, goes to other countries and fights wars for the right reasons. It fights for human rights. It fights for democracy. It fights to bring prosperity. It fights to liberate people. It fights to bring world peace, right? He did an amazing job. I'm so not proud. I'm just kind of in awe of his skill as a fellow graduate of a $20,000 plus private school in the Death Star, the real Death Star, which is actually in Hawaii, I would argue, especially now. I'm just so he did such a good job making America look good, just like Dune does. He did a really good job making it look like the West has something to save in this universe or on this earth. And so, but that's the job of so you could be listening to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton made the same kind of speeches. We are here to lead the free world. With the third wave politics, we are here to bring. You make your thumb like this. I don't know what this is. I don't know what is this about. Why is your thumb always like this? Are you holding the Constitution, the thing you plagiarized from advanced indigenous civilizations like the Iroquois, and then didn't follow with your 260 slave-owning writer Thomas Jefferson and his 14-year-old child rapist policies and his nonsense, right? Is that what you're holding, the Constitution? We, the people of the free world, We, the leaders of democracy, will continue to fight for the freedom of the Eastern Europeans in Bosnia, in Yugoslavia. We, the American troops, are liberating the Gulf in this war that I continue like everyone before me, of George H.W. Bush. We will liberate you from your housing, your healthcare, your food security with quantitative easing, affinity printed loans to Applebee's waitresses that are making $7.50 an hour, that I'm going to allow to get mortgages by signing away Glass-Steagall and all of the things that in 1933, with the Securities and Exchange Act, prevented investment banking and commercial banking from merging. And I am going to liberate you from everything that you ever thought you had as an American dream, your American pie. So get ready to eat shit, because I'm Bill Clinton and I'm going to fuck this entire thing up. But I'm going to sound really freedom and justice loving. And I definitely did not have sex with that woman, and I smoked, I didn't inhale. You know, it's like the Mormons, right? What is it? I soaked. I didn't penetrate. I soaked. You know, so that's a very white. That's the Mormon flavor of whiteness, though, right? It's like we don't have sex. You know, we just insert penis into into the hole, and then friend jumps on bed, and that's not sex. But he's very, but Bill Clinton, who's very slippery like that. You could see it in the Monica Lewinsky trial. If the Republican Democrats had better unity, they wouldn't have revealed how completely full of lies every American president and every American person of any kind of upper middle class status is. Because when they start calling out the American president, like, oh, all these scandals, Starr and all that, Monica Lewinsky and this and that, and Hillary, and they all got to come up and they all got to like defend, and it just makes it tarnishes a potentially 50, 70-year American hegemony down into 40, because you're making them, it doesn't support this perpetual propaganda that America represents fucking anything other than death, destruction, and mass annihilation of all species of Earth, and pillaging, and ultimately just fallout hellscape, the nuclear hellscape, cyberpunk dystopian hellscape in downtown Los Angeles, with teachers shooting up, forced to pay for their substitute teachers so they can go to get chemotherapy that will bankrupt them, and so and then shortly after that, cyberpunk, not just cyberpunk dystopian hellscape, just like post-apocalyptic hellscape, or just like no life on Earth, right? And that's what America represents. America represents like the Dunification, desert with no inhabitable life at all of everything, But then it's talking about how it's going to save everyone from suffering and despair, and give them freedom and prosperity, right, and democracy. And so, I really, that's why I have to say that about this show, because like The Expanse that I talked about last time, and I was fucking disgusted. I don't have time because it's late, but The Expanse episode 4 of the most recent season takes the belters that represent kind of like, they're like the global south, the global underclasses in space. The inner Earth and Martian planets represent, well, they're like the developed world. They're like the advanced economies, the advanced countries, and the belters are, they speak this amalgamation of Asian and African languages. Like they say, Yamseng. They say like they have Chinese drinking cheers, and they have like Africa coded linguistics and phonemes, and of a variety of places. Not really specific because it's space, but it's kind of obvious who they are. And then the most recent one, what happens is, they paint the belter who is like the belters who are like who are horribly treated. They are underpaid, right? They suffer. They work in the most toxic conditions in space. They're dying all the time. They have to do all the mining and the hard physical labor, and all the Earth have like these imperial metropoles of inequality, homelessness, and then the ultra rich at the top, like the United States. And Mars is like Earth and Mars. The inners are like a bifurcation of the U.S. military and the U.S. Ruling class, imperial metropole, right? Earth is like the metropole with all this homeless, healthcareless, starving people, overpopulation. Let's just, like, I don't know, COVID-19 them all, or narco traffic fentanyl into their bodies till they all die or something, or give them really shitty triple capitalist video games that they get so distracted and swept up in that they just like die of starvation as their gamer fuel IV drips run out of juice or something, right? That's Earth. Everybody's just suffering at the bottom, and yeah, at least they're honest about that part. And then the rich are doing better. In season 5, they go, "Oh, the Earth has solved its housing problems. All we got to do is give Jeff Bezos his space colonies." Terrible. Anyways, so whatever things I liked about Expanse in the beginning are kind of gone now. Season 5, in the middle of it, it's like, and now for the global South to finally, the global space South, the Belters, to get their liberation, what happens is you don't want that, because you know what happens? Evil, dark, like, Hispanic, Che-coded looking people with like long hair, like some long hippie Che. He's gonna come and he's gonna take your children and he's gonna turn them into terrorists and blow shit up. Some scary, dark terrorist from the global South is gonna rise up, right? It's like Killmonger, right? It's like scary people are gonna liberate, and then what he's gonna do is he's gonna use space nuclear weapons and blow up the Earth. It literally like throws meteors and shit, right? We're going to throw asteroids and meteors at the Earth. The global South will kill millions of innocent people in New York and in London and in Canada. And that's what's going to happen if you allow the global South to rise up. Those motherfuckers are going to do the exact same thing that we've been doing for them for hundreds of years. And that's what happens. And the leader, Marcos Inaros, uses Martian stealth technology, stolen U.S. military secrets to unite Belters and kill millions and millions and millions. He's dropping asteroids like he's throwing rocks at God, or throwing rocks at innocent Western liberal democratic citizens, really innocent people, right? And I mean, it's terrible. I mean, like, he's like blows up New York, he blows up London, he blows up Tokyo, he just blows everybody up, and he says, so that's what happens is, the global South will just kill millions, like Africa and China are just going to kill millions of people in New York and in Seattle and in London. And all these very nice people will get killed. And Air Force One will go down. And the president of the free world, will be killed. And that's terrible. That's just, I mean, it is terrible, but that's exactly what's going to happen. They're just going to kill lots of people. And then, what they did? And now the Martian, right? And there's an A, the symbol of the Belters is an A, not with an O. It's not anarchist. It's not like the flag smashers who are socialists and anarchists who want to liberate people by ending borders and having food and housing and medicine supplied to poor Eastern European and African and Asian countries. No, and then Captain America chops one of their head off and then gets a promotion from the United States because your own anarchist, socialists, and Lambak and Black Lives Matter children are the enemy, and that's who they are coming for. That's who they are arresting right now and killing. Especially at the Line 3 pipeline and the Coastal GasLink and in Black Lives Matter. Black identity is terrorism in the United States. Remember that. So, that's the program of Hollywood right now, is to basically turn their own millennial and Gen Z starving, hungry, health careless, food insecure college professors teaching at an accredited Michigan college while making not enough to even eat today and having to beg. As somebody who stayed with us was a former college professor in the United States, white, dude passing person who taught at colleges, worked full time, and was paid so little that they were food insecure and housing insecure, living in a van, rationing out peanut butter and a little bit of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and ramen. That's the state of the United States at present. But the inners are treating their people so well, and that's part of the narrative of the latest season. Things are gotten better because we gave the billionaires like Bezos and Musk all the money that they wanted to get to space, and that just produced so much productivity and jobs. Just giving Amazon negative $200 billion in taxes just produced all of this productivity. Right? That's the narrative of season 4. Really, really awesome narrative. The neo-feudal Harkonnen. The Atreides are suddenly gifted. The neo-feudal kings of these giant corporations are just given all this money, and that liberates everyone when we just give free money and let big corporations that currently have taken over from sci-fi the Canadian, entertainment company, when Amazon takes over Expanse, that's just a normal thing to happen, is for really true stories to be told, right? Really honest stories, like how, that's what liberates them. But that's terrible, so the Earth governments that totally aren't bought out by the corporations that are conspicuously basically invisible in the latest season, because they don't exist anymore. It's just governments and people, and very legitimate representative governments. And when a Chinese woman runs the government, she gets her plane blown up, and it's a Chinese woman, and that's why I never have any Chinese people in the U.S. government. No, that's not exactly what it is, but no, she's more sympathetic than that. But it is like the United States and the Western world and the first world, the developed colonizer world, gets attacked. And the A with an O in it, I'm sorry, it's an A with a Pac-Man around it. Definitely not anarchy, right? Not socialism, not leftism. I'm not to say that, like, I have disagreements with different tendencies, but I mean, leftism generally, as leftism for the radical leftism is flag smashers in Falcon and Winter Soldier. The bunch of brown, non-binary, mixed ethnicity, people from all over the world, young people, Gen Z, looking at their phones and reading what their friends from Line 3 and Black Lives Matter are saying, and that's what Captain America has to kill and fight, and that's what Captain America murders, and the only problem is that it looks bad on Captain America. Not that he murdered a Gen Z leftist, which is what the police and military are being encouraged to get ready to do in America right now and in Canada. Get ready to kill your own children when they ask for their healthcare and housing, like that college professor I just talked about, right? With a 6 to 8 year degree, homeless, right? When they ask for anything, get ready for the police to mass incarcerate and kill them, right? Because the Harkonnens of 2020s will be your white children, the ones that aren't of the patriot left. You see, the ones that are voting for Bernie and the squad, because they're totally not licking Biden's butt and selling $100 Miltons and fucking grifters that are voting for the U.S. Pentagon budget. And not standing up and fucking like hanging out with Nancy Pelosi's 100 gallons of Penthouse gold leaf chiffon ice cream and guzzling, mint chocolate chip and Louis Vuitton themed, burgers, very vegan, very progressive burgers with like tax the rich written in Pfizer vaccine stencil, I'm not to get your vaccine, but I mean, Pfizer fentanyl 2.0 stencil, and they're just eating tax the rich. They're very progressive Nancy Pelosi best friends, right? And everybody who isn't patriot left, they're coming for you. Get ready for this. I'm not saying that, no, they probably won't succeed because America's going to die before that happens. There's a bunch of clowns. But anyways, when you have this, but that's what's in Expanse, is there's an A with an O in it, and they symbolize the global left, the revolutionary anti-imperialist left. They represent the global south. They represent all of the Bolivian $3 an hour workers in MAS, socialist, indigenous mass movement, and socialist and Marxist economists, Arce-backed, Evo Morales, fighting against the U.S. imperialism and Canada and Western imperialism with the help of Germany, right? The Belters are the Bolivian indigenous people, right? And they are what? If you ever give the Bolivians an inch, if you give the Africans an inch, if you allow them, give it 5 years, give it 10 years, right? You give the Chinese 5 minutes, they're going to turn around, they're going to nuke you, they're going to kill you, they're going to take over there's only 5, 6, 800 million white people. If the other 7.4 billion people, if you ever stop stomping on them, if the inners ever come off of you, you know what's gonna happen? They're gonna kill you all, and they're gonna be on top, and that's what happens. The Martians bomb and they toss 65 million year old sized asteroids at the Earth, cause these 20 megaton explosions, like they try to basically blow the whole Earth up. They hit with like 3 separate meteors until they can get their Iron Dome Earth system working, basically, and shoot down some of these asteroids. And then Mars gets the ultimate technology, the proto-molecule, which is basically capable of like destroying any civilization. Like it can accelerate any object in space, apparently, up to near light speed it's and also if it arrives on a planet, it can wipe out everything with super advanced 10-dimensional alien metaphysical creatures. It's a very terrible advanced technology by an ancient advanced civilization. But I hate when they have ancient advanced civilization just making terrible technology. Because we're the Native Hawaiians and the Asian Pacific people and the peoples of Turtle Island and Africa. We're ancient advanced civilizations, but we don't just make fucking weapons. You fuckers took our tools like submarines, like electricity, like powder, like black powder, like paper, and you use the paper to write massive amounts of lies in your Bibles and in your title listings, and then you took the black powder to make the guns to go slaughter everybody. We didn't do that. Why do you keep on? I hate this. Advanced civilizations are terrible and they all slaughter themselves. No, you fuckers, you the younger, not advanced Western barbarists fucked it all up. And let us. Anyways, let's stop. Let's be nice. But anyways, so this protomolecule thrown at is the ultimate post-nuclear threat. It's like AI crossed with AI-powered nuclear cyber warfare, quantum computing, ultimate tech. That would be the Earth equivalent. If China got like the ultimate technology. That's why we gotta stop AI and anything. It's all bad. Bloomberg articles. Oh my God, Jaron Lanier, come over here. Wait, shut up. You're saying AI. We don't actually know whether it's AI or not. Elon Musk, come over here and rant on the giant megaphone that we have called Western media, Western mass media and social media with all the blue check marks about how AI is bad, so we can stop China from using it for better renewable technology, green solar batteries, the greatest 25 million plus green cities, and the biggest high-speed rail stations that are going to be gifting 5.8 million kilowatts of electricity to the surrounding community. That's going to be used to, do a lot of positive things. I mean, in the right hands, right? Now, if you get a hold of it, yeah, you use AI to destroy the Earth. I know that's what you love to do because you're a bunch of fucking Western barbarists. But anyways, if you allow the global South, if you give China, Africa, Central South America, and the Pacific, all those sneaky little dirty little brown apes, they're all apes throwing spears at each other, right? Like Prince Philip said, leader of a feudal empire that recently died. Rest in shit. So, if we allow them to get a hold of this AI technology, this advanced quantum computing that can send quantum entangled particles in super encrypted format across the Earth, and the CIA can't fucking listen to it with all of its Apple, Google, and American telecom and military-backed communication infrastructure. You know what they're gonna do? They're gonna kill us all. And then they're gonna blow up millions of innocent people in the U.S. and the West, and all the Atreides will be screaming for their innocent little Western liberal democratic lives, and that's what's gonna happen. And this bloody dictator who slaughters innocent scientists. It's like Killmonger killing his girlfriend. What the fuck did he have to kill his girlfriend for? It's because when black global South and non-white global South colonized people ask to just have some kind of justice, they always have to be painted as murderous, terroristic, criminal, irredeemable flag smashers, killmongers, or Marcos Inaros Earth murderers, just innocent murderers. They come into a science facility and the scientist oh my God, I'm just trying to do science, please. And then Marcos with his dark narco stare, he looks like somebody who would star in a Netflix original series about how indigenous and Hispanic people in South Central America are all just authoritarian dictators, like Evo Morales, just drug trafficking, snorting heroin, and then, not like America is the fucking number one narco trafficker that backs all the murderous regimes that does all the fucking Colombian death squad trafficking with the, AOS and the fucking School of the Americas, and Mr. Biden ordering death squads into Colombia to kill them. No. It's these dark South American, Che, long hair, looking creepazoid. It's weird, boomer reading of what it means to be communist. But anyways, and it is these creepy communists with this not an anarchy symbol. That's a A with a Pac-Man around it. It's Pac-Man eating an A. It's called it's not an anarchy symbol. It's just an A with the A sticking out the side of the Pac-Man's head and chin. That's all it is. So all of this, what's going to happen is they're going to rise up and they're going to just slaughter countless innocent people. The Chinese will have warships. You give those Chinese any protomolecule, AI and, the ability to build, 1/3 of the U.S. Pentagon budget, which is what You add the Chinese and the next 9 people behind that, they barely touch the U.S. spending. If you combine the next 10 countries behind it, doesn't even touch America, and the Chinese were the third. And if we allow the Chinese to have fishing boats, I'm sorry, not fishing boats, that's a fishing boat with nuclear fish on it. Nuclear fish sailing on the side of Peru. Very dangerous, right? Chinese ships, warships, stopping freedom of navigation. They're gonna be in China. I'm sorry, in the free country of Taiwan. Oh wait. Who am I talking to? Are we in the one China policy where we're actually doing international diplomatic negotiations? Or I'm on Australian, American, Canadian television or YouTube videos on fucking Dateline, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, Jacobin, New York Times or Wall Street Journal? Am I talking to the American public, or am I actually trying to do diplomatic relations because I'm a two-faced fucking clown politician? One China, we're definitely not starting a war, but actually China is secretly plotting to invade Taiwan, which is part of China. And America is definitely not. I just saw this article. China flies 38 military aircraft near Taiwan. You know what you didn't hear today? You know what you didn't hear? United States flies, hundreds of aircraft, military aircraft, and now, you know what they've just added? Reaper drones. You know what kind of drones these Reapers are? These are the kind of drones, hunter-killer drones, flying over illegally occupied Hawaii, which have killed 90% civilians, in Afghanistan. And, do you hear that story? Do you hear that story where U.S. is illegally flying over Hawaiian airspace, drones, and bombing Pohakuloa, which is not like 30 miles from where I'm streaming? Do you hear that story? You don't hear that story, do you? No. No, what do you hear? Chinese is flying aircraft over China. But you see, no, what's happening? Is it the left picture or is it the right picture, right? Is it China ringed in by 400 military bases on Earth with fucking illegal bases in Guam, in Hawaii, dumping 300 times the reported amount of PFAS forever chemicals into Okinawan drinking water against over 3/4 of the Okinawan people who demand the end of U.S. military bases against their will, U.S. forcing PFAS chemicals into their water, and COVID-19 through polluted, pandemic-ridden soldiers with extraterritoriality through cordon sanitaires into Okinawan bodies so that 1 in 40 people had fucking COVID-19. Is that what's happening? Is China shoving COVID into Hawaii? China doesn't have COVID. China has 26 cases for 1.4 billion fucking people. No, it's the United States encircling, blowing up, and terrorizing this whole fucking planet. But any second now, you're going to have Venezuelan warships sailing up the side of the New York coast, aiming at the stock exchange. You're going to have, scary Libyan nuclear missiles pointed at, our friends in the Middle East that are genociding with 99% unpotable water in Palestine. They're going to attack. They're going to shoot. Germany is going to get hit by those Italians. They called us out on Adrian Zen's backed complete abject proven lies of 8 anecdotal testimonies, word of mouth, equating a incontrovertible genocide that the left, right, and center Western media have been blasting. And Italy, any second now, Italy will be getting Chinese weapons and warships that'll be sailing up and down the side of, who's our friend still? France is kind of like pissed off. Italian warships made by the Chinese military will be sailing up next to the Thames. They'll be sailing right to the Thames. If they can get through the sludge and dead British bodies from COVID and starvation because Britain can't get fucking food on the shelf, the Tesco's is being depleted of biscuits and Weetabix and fucking Earl Grey. Oh no, but the Chinese warship is more dangerous than Britain's own disastrous neoliberal self-annihilatory neo-feudal class. That Chinese-made Italian warships coming any second. Now you better spend another $10 billion on Her Majesty the Queen Victoria warship to fight that other warship, and most of the $10 billion is going to go straight into HSBC and Tony Blair's friend's pocket to buy another 25 Cayman Islands mansions and resorts. But you got to spend that money, otherwise China going to come to Australia and attack its number one trading partner because it wants to blow up the people that it's trading with. That's a totally normal thing to do, right? Totally normal thing to do. But that's what the story of expanse is. The story of the global south is going to invade and kill every first world colonizer. You motherfuckers are gonna do the exact same thing that we did to it. You give it 5 minutes, you motherfuckers, you black people, you're gonna rise up and you black nationalism, same as white nationalism. You're gonna rise, you're gonna kill us. That's Vosh. But he's just following. He's just following Frank Herbert. You know, he's just following in the footsteps of Frank Herbert. You Asian communists, you're out there to kill us all. And also, you're the one fighting all the wars in Afghanistan, China. You Asian communists, you're the one fighting all the wars in Iraq and Syria and Libya and well, they did have problems with Vietnam, but you are doing the vast proportion of the death and destruction and the imperialism and the crushing and the debt traps and the And I'm just, Vosh is just some random fucking, he's like the ass end pimple on a giant, multi-thousand mile long Cthulhu squid of the actual, floating blob. That's the United States military and its floating blob aircraft carriers that are fucking tumors all over the ocean, dumping toxic waste and fossil fuel. The number one carbon emitter is the U.S. military. So, but that's what it is. And so now that Marco scenarios in the Expanse world, right? Now that the Belters, the Space Global South, has these powerful weapons, this most powerful weapon. They have unilaterally assured destruction, right? And so what they're gonna do with it? They're gonna build hegemony, or they have the greatest military power. So they're going to build hegemony. They're crushing the Inners and the Martians. They're just slaughtering innocent people. They said, if you try to come out, we will kill you. We are Martian Belter separatist murderer terrorists. And that's what black separatism is. Exactly the same. No, black nationalism is not white nationalism. Number one, black separatism is not the oppressed cannot, the oppressed cannot do violence against the oppressed. The greatest violence is already being done. And the oppressed are right to resist. Now, what we don't want to do is start more fucking wars and flip the script, like I keep saying, but nobody listens in the West, and with the people that identify strongly as patriots of their various colonizer countries. But that's the story. That's the deep narrative of, I would argue, basically every science fiction story. Almost, not everyone. I shouldn't say every, but the biggest, most famous, most Amazon-backed, the ones that are being made. Dune, the most celebrated ones, because they tell the story. Now, where exactly? I don't think you could really pinpoint where exactly. The entire Western culture is awash in as William, as CIA director, Mr. William, what the fuck was his name? We know when the disinformation campaign of the CIA is complete. When everything the American public believes is false. So that's William Casey, CIA director. So it's not. I don't know where exactly. It's not clear where exactly Frank Herbert got all these ideas from. I don't know that he talked to the Pentagon and Mr. Marshall and the neocons and was like, hey, what are you guys gonna do in Afghanistan? Or you're gonna go start a land war? Oh, I'm gonna make it look like Russia. You're gonna go start a land war in Iraq and intervene in Palestine. I'm gonna make it look like the communist countries are doing all the harm there, while you guys back extremists and cause quagmires and then just like blow that whole thing up to stop the heartland. Okay, I don't think he's like literally working with them. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't have the receipts for that, but the whole culture, the news media, the print media, the New York Times in that time, the New Yorker, right? All of this is just inundated and surrounded and filled, and the water cooler conversation, the liberal and conservative Washington suburb, the New York inner city, the teaching, the classroom on Monday in Kansas in 1965. Is the teacher is teaching this bullshit. Everyone is surrounded in the family dinner table conversation, as Mr. Clinton and Mr. Obama like to talk about. Dinner table conversation. In the dinner table, you're talking about, what that authoritarian Iraq is doing. We got to save those incubator babies. Oh my God, we got the Mujahideen. Oh my God, they're so good. Free men down there fighting a good fight against the people that we need. Everybody's just repeating this bullshit. The university is over there. They're over like Uyghur genocide. We got to go invade to support the free men of ETIM. Eastern Afghanistan, very free men in the desert, right? The Uyghur people are very, as Carl Zah put it, it's Uyghurs, not Uyghur. They're a very, peaceful people. The Muslim has a lot more progressive things and a lot more. I don't like the word progressive because it comes from progression from indigenous savagery to advanced Western feudalism, capitalism, but which is, it's the opposite. It's a digression into Western barbarism. But the Uyghur people, the Uyghur people have a very peaceful way. They have a lot of dances. They're very loving people. They're very similar to the Hawaiians in a lot of ways. When I watch and I listen to them, I'm trying to listen and watch and learn more from them. The actual Uyghur people, not the people that they put up on the screen that are photoshopped by Nathan Hosier and Aspie and the military industrial fucking clowns. And all the university professors that are backing this and cowards. If they know the truth and they're not out there saying the truth about China in Canada, especially, and in the United States, especially, and in Australia, especially, they're a bunch of cowards and clowns and they're useless. Some of them are just diseducated, but that's a normal thing because at the university, cafeteria, that's what they're sitting around talking about. That thing they read on the news today, right? Either you read that on the news today because we're not hearing all the university professors come out and going, all the sociology, history, and politics professors come out and going, we have to stop this genocide if they are supposedly educated in their field, right? So either they're idiots and they don't deserve the fucking degrees that they have on their walls lecturing in imperialist institutions with academic characteristics, or hedge funds masquerading as places of learning, which is what universities in the United States are for sure, and a lot of Canada. Either you're an idiot and you don't deserve that degree, or you're a fucking coward and you're a liar and you're sitting there allowing Cold War 2.0 to happen that could destroy everything that we have. And at the minimum is increasing Asian hate attacks in Vancouver by 800%. So if you're a Vancouver professor and you're not standing out against this nuclear war, you're a coward and you are, what the fuck? But that's why I say, not that they say there's no good work being done by people that are that are professors, but they're also locked in to the empire that gives the money, public and private, to continue to fund so-called education. So I'm saying if you do know this, and the truth is there are statistics and sociology professors that know who Adrian Zenz is, and they looked at his numbers and they said, his statistics are all wrong. This is all bogus. This is not fit. This does not meet academic rigor. But they're all cowards that want to keep their cushy jobs in the Canadian Empire on the back of stolen Indigenous land and to do a little land acknowledgement, right? But that's you got to survive on other people's death and genocide and continued oppression, right? And getting shot and having sniper rifles point at you in Wet'suwet'en and Line 3, right? And you can sit in your fucking office and have air condition and, or not. I mean, think about it. Like, how long are you going to have air condition, when you're 50% food insecure, College professors in the U.S. nowadays, you're not going to have much, anything any longer. You're being paid enough to, take all your knowledge. Where's your knowledge work going to go ultimately? Is it going to be used for good by the U.S. and Canada? Is that what it's going to do? There's things to consider. At minimum, we need to be clear about what's happening. We need to try to be more brave and honest about the truth. Or just say I'm an intellectual coward. And I'm an idiot and I deserve my degree. It taught me to be a critical thinker. But I would argue that the West is not about critical thinking. The West doesn't want anybody to be educated. And that's why Richard Wolff says everybody in basically the economics department is basically diseducated. And I had to quit and go to another department and kind of read my own. I had to make my own curriculum basically to get educated. But but you have to really think about, that's when I say entertainment and politics, education, these are inseparable. It is the fictional belief of the West that you can separate these things out, right? That you can have politics here, business here, pleasure there, that you can have political discussion here and then watching movies over there and playing video games over there, right? That you can take psychological trauma and abuse and you can go sit on a little couch with your shrink, right? And take a little Prozac for problems that you have. And that's separate from centuries of built up societal trauma, the trauma of capitalism, being threatened with your lack of food and housing unless you traumatize other people by lying to them about how this pill is going to save their life, called fentanyl, which is what you do as a doctor. That's what you got to do. You're a trauma doer. And then you're traumatizing yourself by traumatizing that person, or by being a police officer, security guard, cop, military personnel, which everybody works with the U.S. military, traumatizing and killing and slaughtering innocent people inside and outside of the empire, right? That's compartmentalization. You can't take psychology and mental health and therapy, right? And then go, we're going to do a little therapy over here, and I'm going to go back to an abusive workplace and come back to an abusive house. But that's part of the lie, is that this is all separate. No, this is not. It cannot be separated. This is the thing that advanced indigenous civilizations like Hawaiians and other indigenous people in Turtle Island, and the Chinese and the Vietnamese, they recognize this more. They know that this is all together, right? And yes, there's important people to have freedom to say and think their mind, to say and express themselves, but that has to be balanced, you know, and it can't be like in its own metaphysical ultimate freedom, like America, freedom of speech, freedom of everything is just like sacrosanct. It has to be dealt with in relation to and in good faith for the benefit of all the people against the spread of the disinformation that could harm people. Like, for example, vaccines are fake, right? Or they're the mark of the beast. You put a vaccine in your arm, you turn into fucking Satan with a 666 symbol showing up, and you got like a bunch of pentagrams on your forehead, which is what we have family members here that think that kind of stuff. Because, you know, that's the other side of the balance. And freedom of religion means the ability to show up in a country and, you know, just pretend to be a doctor and kill them, like in Uganda, which is what a lot of religious missionary outfits have done, you know, that have harmed people, right? But it's religious, so you can't touch it, right? I got a religious. There's a lot of, again, there's lots of people to this day that are still getting religious exemptions for basic health protocols that will stop another 700,000 deaths and the future millions that will die when the unvaccinated world, when Americans have 5 times the vaccines of the rest of the world and they're not even, so many of them are refusing to take any of the vaccines. Millions will die if people cannot, you know, practice, if the freedom to say and do whatever you want at any time, no matter who it harms, especially if it benefits a white and a rich and a man, right? The freedom to do these things has to be balanced, and that part of politics is balanced with health. And they're interconnected. They're not separate. You can't take those things and you can't break them up. You have to deal with these things all together simultaneously. Like the ability for people to accumulate vast quantities of money. Economics and politics separate, right? You go into a voting booth, that's politics, right? You play plutocracy coloring book game. It's called which one of two military industrial complex, Wall Street supporting surveillance capitalist backed puppets do I want to vote for, right? But that's politics. You go into the little dead white war criminal booth, like, I don't know, Jefferson, the Lincoln Elementary School, because he's also a war criminal, wanted to deport all the black people, sell them back to Africa, terrible person. Andrew Jackson Elementary School, and then you fill a little form. It's called Voting Day in America. That's politics. That's politics. Or listening to bullshit artists in infotainment all day long, and then that's politics. And that tell you nothing true. And then you have economics over there, right? Which is where we go to work and very smart and intelligent, and every person is paid exactly in direct proportion to the difficulty of problems that they solve. Elon Musk, thus speaketh Elon Musk, and that in prosperity doctrine and the capitalism and this great system that we operate in, and that's economics. That's just economics. So if you're starving, if you're homeless, if you're sick, if you're dead, COVID-19 or otherwise, that's your fault. That's economics over there. Totally different from the politics. Nothing to do with it. Neither the twain shall ever meet. That's totally separate things. Very different. It's not like allowing to have 3 people own as much wealth as half of an entire country would ever alter politics. Just listen to AOC, who said people are starting to get money out of politics. She just tweeted that today. And as long as we just keep taxing the rich, so as long as I lie about how I'm taxing the rich, I'm a lie. AOC is like the next Obama. Awesome war criminal job. You might become president one day, and run the biggest, most terrible empire that's ever existed. So AOC is over there lying, and talking about how, oh yeah, money's getting out of politics. 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 And anything that was ever radical, if there ever was anything, is all gone. It's a joke. It's all just rebranding for the U.S. It's like the U.S. going, oh shit, just saying that black and brown people aren't human and Asians are are like demonic, despotic, genetically inferior, debased blood. Oh, that's bad now. Oops. We're in post-World War II era when we put a fucking mask on. AOC is the 2020 remasking of the Western empires and their barbarism. So, but you know, these are not you cannot separate all these things. You have to think about these things together, which is why I keep discussing, you know, and part of it is, you know, I don't want to get my streams taken down. And so I bring up I don't like front load it as much, and it seems to be working, at least sometimes. But yeah, you know, it's yeah, that really troubled. It didn't trouble me. It didn't surprise me. I was just looking through Dune. I'm like, okay, where is it gonna click that this is some bullshit Cold War, like Heinlein's fascist anti-communist speed run on the East, which is about, brainless, brainwashed, insectile, communist-coded, despotic, alien murderers are coming for you. Starship Troopers, right? I'm like, where is Dune gonna reveal who it is? And then I saw it. That's where it is. We're gonna pivot from Western barbarism destroying the world with primary kinetic warfare outbreaks in Europe and in the Pacific and in East Asia, and we're gonna pivot to the Middle East, right? Pivot to Asia. Now it's pivot to where? Indo-Pacific, right? So Dune is a story of Western barbarism pivoting into the heartland in the Belt and Road, in what is now the Belt and Road Initiative, to stop the uniting of the Central Asian and a lot of them socialist or left-leaning, left-pushing counter-hegemonic forces, right? But now, the 2020s is the pivot away from Dune, right? We're going from Afghanistan into where? South China Sea. We're going to Afghanistan where? Let's deploy another, Reaper drones into Hawaii, right? Where? AUKUS, right? Where's AUKUS? Nuclear submarines in where? Australia, right? So this is like what's happening on Earth right now is, it's not actually, they're not really leaving Asia. So that's not really true, right? They're still over the horizon, murdering innocent people, blowing up innocent civilians, like 10 people killed by U.S. military action recently, right? All the little dead innocent people that America blew up after it left, right? With its continued remote airstrike actions. And so, but it is pivoting away. But that's what Dune is really about. It's about pretending like the West is going to do anything good ever for the world, but particularly in the areas that have a lot of sand and Saharan large desertified areas, which is what the U.S. did for the last 70 years, right? And the climate, nothing that Atreides' house. If the West is the Atreides' house, there's nothing they can do for the climate. It's like an eco novel. What the West is going to do is going to cry into its milk and cry into its Earl Grey tea that it's running out of the shelves of because my supply chain's running out. And then China is in the global group of friends that are going to demand mutual win-win cooperation and mutual economic and equity and concrete development with with a lot more renewable technology. China's just cut all of its coal policy. It's like literally going to, about face hundreds of billions of dollars worth of dirty technology right now. And it's just amazing what's happening. I want to end kind of on a positive note. I know I got to end because it's like 1:42, but just to say that the good news is that the Asian, the Harkonnen, the real Harkonnens, if the Eastern communist countries that were just defaced with the Harkonnen house, the positive thing is that they're the opposite of that. If anything, the real Harkonnen is the Atreides, the murderous killers, right? That we're witnessing every day, and that the East and that the group of friends in the actual socialist countries, China, Vietnam, Cuba, the parts of the Turtle Island that are being taken back and decolonized, Bolivia, or even the countries in African countries that are developing with win-win cooperation of getting other things we talk about, ports built, electrical grids built. Libya finally, Libya was starting to get, U.S. bombed it, but Libya is going to be coming back with support of win-win concrete development, with roads and houses and infrastructure and technological development so that they can provide healthcare, housing, and basic needs to the people. Most of Africa still no electricity. Libya, I think it's 15%. In Niger, which supplies 1/3 of all of the electricity to France, from one uranium deposit, France has 100% access to electricity for 24 hours. 15% have access to a grid in Niger, and less than that have basically almost none have 24-hour access to electricity. So that is being undone. And so the good news is that there's a lot of this is going to happen whether America wants to or not. This is not really an option anymore. It's just how many more people have to suffer, and how much more of the planet have to die. How many more species have to go extinct until the Western world and the people that used to be colonizer, white, racist, capitalist, or whatever wrong things they think, undo that and undo, what their feudal lord and corporate lord classes, in solidarity with the indigenous people whose land they stand on, So, so there's the Chang'an Mega Bullet Train. Very, very interesting. It's just one project. I was just reading about this. This is the biggest train station in the world. Is recently just completed, and this huge train station. Let me see if I can get a picture of it. I'll put the video up here. This huge train station, the largest in the world, 25 million. It's basically like Beijing is becoming too overcrowded, right? Too many people are there, and the Chinese, because they actually plan things.
Google Fi.
Unlike the West, which and the Western capitalist world, which says whatever richest person you want a bunch of money, well, just take a bunch of free money and jack up the price of real estate in this region until it explodes, right? They don't plan anything. They just, here, whatever richest clown wants to make more money, you get money to speculate on real estate. But in China, they actually plan things out. They don't always succeed at planning it accurately, but they go, we have to alleviate the density. We want to have a wider, more dispersed population that includes Shanghai, that includes the greatest capital accumulations in Shanghai, in Hong Kong's, and in Beijing even, the coastal cities and the core biggest oldest cities. We need to spread out, partially to kind of decentralize the capital and these housing gains that are getting $30 million for a Shanghai flat, which is a big problem. That's part of why they cracked down on Evergrande and destroyed one of the largest private equity firms investing in overpriced real estate, because they don't want to America itself circa 2008, 2009, right? And so this is the Chang'an Mega Bullet Train Station, is the biggest station in Asia. It is run on solar. The whole station is run on solar power. It is 2 overground levels. It is what was the stats? Yeah, it generates 500 million kilowatt hours. 25 million people in this region will be supported by 2035 if it goes according to plan. It will be doing just a huge amount of high speed, low carbon footprint transportation. It's built on time, under budget, and under time, where it takes the U.S. and it took like 10, 20 years to not build 10 miles of rail in the wealthiest, one of the richest ultra-American cities in the richest country in the world, in Honolulu, Hawaii. 10 miles. It's under budget. There's cracks in the concrete. The thing is like falling apart already. They have to rebuild sections of it, and it's like 200 going on 300% over budget. They built this on time, on budget, and it's got renewable tech. It's gonna alleviate a lot of the density problems. Talk about all these problems with like over the gentrification and just like hyper overpriced Vancouver, Los Angeles, New York real estate, and this is part of that, and also part of light, lower carbon methods of transportation. So anyways, that was just one thing I was reading about, and it's like, yeah, also it's gonna generate more electricity than it needs, as far as I could understand it. It's like 500 households worth of electricity. Yeah. So, I was just like, the other thing, the other thing I recently discovered is China has made major breakthroughs in quantum computing, where they are able to now transmit. They successfully, it's not quite at the level of full mass usage, but they're able to do quantum encrypted messages sent back and forth that are basically unbreakable. They've kind of proven that the technology works. They also have what was the other thing? So 2 meter tall. Oh yeah, they also invented a 2 meter tall giant rice that resists disease and flooding. Let's see the giant rice. I was like, what the holy shit? So it's a giant rice strain. Let me see if I can find it. It's on the Dongsheng News. Dongsheng. Okay. Yeah, Dongsheng News. And it's a rice strain that allows you to. It will allow a lot more people to be fed, a lot more cheaply. It will give people also Meng Wanzhou, U.S. What France couldn't do, China has defeated the United States in international corporate lawfare. It's Huawei is a worker-owned cooperative, by the way. A worker-owned cooperative defeated a corporation backed by defeated the United States fighting for its technological capitalist corporate dominance. I mean, that's actually a win for cooperatives and for China and for just actual international law, against the U.S. and Canada's collaboration in illegal actions. Let me see. Yeah, this one. But yeah, where is that one? The giant rice. Yeah, no, rice. New hybrid rice variety resistant to diseases, floods, and saline alkaline soils is featured in the 2021 Chongqing Harvest Festival. Cultivated with fish, shrimp, and crayfish farming, this 2-meter tall giant rice is increasing the peasants' income while combating food insecurity. Festival attracted over 100,000 visitors who participated in the harvest-related activities. So, I was just thinking about this, like in terms of and I was talking to a Positive Synergy, another Native Hawaiian comrade at the Silver Spook and brother at the Silver Spook Kui /cooperative /commune here, and we designed a in our high school physics, or was it biology class, we had this machine. We had an ecosystem, Hawaiian freshwater ecosystem from the Kalihi Valley caught. I think they're actually Malaysian prawns, I think, but I could be mistaken. And the Hawaiian local crayfish and opu and other local fish that with there's other decomposers, and crayfish are they're scavengers, and then we had other plants inside of our it was basically a fish tank aquarium simulated ecology, and ours lasted the longest. Apparently we had a waterfall and everything. I was just talking to Kama about this, and I read this and I was like, oh yeah, because we're the two native Hawaiians amongst not a lot of native Hawaiians. I said a lot more Asian and wealthier Asian and white people that more on the Gusano edge of the spectrum on average, right? But we were we used to fish in the Kalihi stream, the native Hawaiian stream behind our house, and I was like, and I read this and I was like, despite the special agricultural products exhibition, sales outlets were arranged to facilitate the purchase of, sturdy stall rice stalks and straight leaves. The giant rice can reach high photosynthetic efficiency. As a result, the number of effective tillers can reach 40 on average, each producing about 500 grains maximum. Moreover, it's also strongly resistant to diseases, lodging, flooding, and salt alkali soil. It can also bring sufficient nutrients to the plants nearby and provide shade and shelter for aquatic mammals. So the rice-fish symbiosis it sounds very Hawaiian, because that's a lot of the way the Hawaiians ahupua'a worked. I talked about this last time. Was you had and it's similar to a lot of indigenous people on Turtle Island as well, which is you had from the mountain to the sea, ecological cohabitation in terraced beds of there's multiple varieties of, there's dryland taro, and then there's the mud-based taro or kalo, but they would often have crayfish and fish living alongside, so that it's like a mini aquaponic or not hydroponic, well, not aquaponic, but more like hydroponic, but an ecological food system. It's a kind of a regenerative agriculture that would kind of self-sustain and produce a high total micro and macronutrient yield with very little, with not none, but a lot less effort than you might require if you're doing, I don't know, let's say factory farming and that kind of monocropping, big ag sort of stuff. And so and that's so I was like, yeah, we have that's kind of how we would do it in Hawaii. And again, Native Hawaiians are descendant peoples from ancient Austronesian and other Asian and Pacific Island peoples from thousands of years of historical migrations through Melanesia, Micronesia, Polynesia. But those are the names that the West called it. But throughout the Pacific, and we're relatives of those people. And so when they brought this these methods of cultivation, and I was like, I mean, it's not necessarily because but there's something to that way of thinking of this is how this plant interacts. The reason why we cultivate, when you gather wild rice as an indigenous person in many so-called Canada located tribes, they'll leave the rice, they'll drop some of it. And the white colonizers will say, why are you dropping rice? It's a waste of rice, right? But the indigenous people will say, well, actually, we want the rice to fall so that allows it to regenerate next year. And also, we don't want to clear this jungle. That's not just jungle. That jungle is actually part of a flora and fauna ecological relationship between this plant, this animal, this bug. They're working together to maintain, with low total labor required, high yield, and maintains the soil, maintains the water, maintains stability, and not only overuse and overconsumption, but also maintains the health and thriving of the land, the air, the water, and each of these different species that we're working with together, right? And part of that requires you to at least respect the plants and animals and the world to an extent that you like listen and pay attention to them, or like not listen, but like watch and see how they interact with each other. Not because you're like, I just want to worship plants like a god or something. And the crayfish, like, oh, God crayfish is gonna come and save me. No, it's because you're cohabitating with them, and you have to understand them to live in mutual respect with the Aina, with the land, right? To fulfill your kuleana with them, and with other human beings around you, right? And so, which is in Mexi is part of the total liberation for all sentient beings, and and that's very important, which is that when you're abusing a lot of animals, and you're abusing and maltreating other and just disrespecting and just ignoring, right, the way that you ignored black and brown and indigenous people, and you say, well, I know what land back is, even though I don't know anything about land back, but I think it's all bullshit, and I think you're all just going to do what we did, which is you're going to rise up and enslave, kill, and steal all our white stuff. That's not respecting that. You're not listening, right? You didn't even try, right? So I don't know anything about this. I don't care to listen because I'm a smart genius, right? And so similarly, like, you have to like be able to like respect like just other things and have some humility, You have to like fucking bow down and worship each grain of sand, but like, even for your own self in your own so-called civilization, you might want to learn how to like listen to nature. Anyway, so the fact that, and so this symbiosis, right, between the fish, the rice, and the prawn and the crayfish, right, that allows like better yield, and it maintains the water, it maintains each of these species. The biggest regenerative, the biggest undesertification projects where you're like planting, just like thousands and millions ultimately of acres of different grass and alfalfa, and then trying to take back or trying to bring back green to barren and dry land, which gives way to more barren land, which is problematic for climate change and etc. The biggest projects are in China. So anyway, but I thought those, and I was like, that's part of what Voltaire called this. Why is this civilization, this 3,500-year-old, why is this nation with a natural deistic religion? But it's really it's religion, but again, not decompartmentalized. It's not just religion. It's not just spirituality. It's spirituality, but it's also values, and it's also ecology. It's environmental science, and it's culinary arts. It's everything together, and they're not separable. And you have to practice exactly. Oh, I got to learn how to be Taoist and Confucian now, and worship the grass. No, it just means like you have to think about how each of our spiritual beliefs, right? Because Voltaire was pointing out we have metaphysical mes rensa, mes extensa. We have these disconnected angels dancing on pit heads, and God came down and said that this man was king. We have these disconnected from reality. Umphaloskepsis based, staring at my navel, and I happen to be in a blood-covered violence and mass disinformation based place called the King. How am I gonna keep my power? Let me just think of some bullshit called God came down and said that I'm king, right? Separate from the material reality, separate from nature, not in dialectical relationship, right? And that's part of what Voltaire's talking about. The Western illusory Christian historiography that is a poison to which China, this 3,500-year-old civilization, based on the is it not rest on the merit of the Mandarins, the Kahuna for Hawaiian, the word is Kahuna, the merit of people who are allowed to lead for the benefit of all society, rather than the hereditary privilege of the birthright of King Louis XIV, who was Voltaire's abuser, who then said, "Get the fuck out of here, go into the stocks." And and part of that ecological coexistence with nature, which doesn't have to be you have to be Hawaiian or Chinese. You just have to like learn that we can't just go, you have freedom of religion over here and environmental practice over there. And freedom of religion means your freedom to not take vaccines, believe that God said use fossil fuels and all this nonsense that backs destructive ecological and pandemic alleviation health requirements, right? These are, you have to deal with this together. You can believe certain things, but you believe in those things. You can't just say, okay, I'm not going to get a vaccine because Jesus Christ said that, and Jesus Christ is Joe Rogan said that, a horse tranquilizer and sheep dewormer and goat nail polish has what COVID, has what we need to cure COVID. I mean, just, you can't allow people to just, you can't allow people, but we have to understand that's all part of this, ecological, holistic understanding of all of reality ultimately, and also spirituality. So, anyways, I thought it was really cool. I was like, we did that. We did crayfish and fish and plants living together to have a symbiotic relationship in our 10th 11th grade biology ecosystems bit of our course there. So anyway, I mean, good job on that. And also, you know what else they're doing? They're also beating up on all the billionaires, and it's another guy a guy was sentenced, the head of one of these where is it? Yuan Renguo, ex-chairman of state-owned beverage giant Kwei Chow Mutai, is given lifetime sentence for receiving $17.5 million in bribes. So, there's people that are governors of Hawaii and presidents of universities that have taken millions of dollars in bribes. How many people have been taking bribes? Everyone in Congress wouldn't be around anymore. Every president, every politician, and basically the entire government of the United States almost would be, life in prison at this point. If, definitely all the Senate and most of the representatives, because they're all taking bribes all the time. It's the Senate insider. The United States Congress cannot be accused and convicted of insider trading. So that's the best way to give a congressman or woman or Senator Burr and Loeffler a bunch of money, is you just say, hey, don't vote against the interests of the military industrial complex or Silicon Valley, and I'll give you, I don't know, a big bucket of preferred shares in Amazon stock or Google stock or, this stock or that stock, Halliburton or Lockheed, and you can't be convicted of, it's like, you literally can't be convicted of insider trading. It's like literally like legalized corruption. That's just one of countless forms that they could use. Start a nonprofit, and nonprofits are very opaque and different to get into. Notoriously, nobody cares to get into them, because why would we go after nice nonprofits, especially when they're like the Clinton Foundation or something like that, and they're money laundering, tax deductible, senator and congressman bribing machines. I worked for one of these before, so I didn't find out till way later what they actually were, but sadly, but if you were in China, you take $1 million, 10, 20 million in bribes, you're in prison for life. So, we don't want a carceral system, but, we also have to have, there has to be consequences for people who are undoing the needs and the systems that are helping millions and millions and billions of people, actually, and over 1 billion in China, to continue to exist. You have to root that out, right? And ideally, be like, well, we have better, less carceral structures, and, this person might get off with less, but other people aren't alive that made billions of dollars, But U.S. and Australia are crying over this billionaire that was reprimanded in China, and it's like, I fear for my life. I'm in UK because the Chinese government is coming after a billionaire for, tax evasion and corruption. Black and brown people get in prison for standing on a fucking street corner, and it's what America and Canada and UK, they're crying for other fucking billionaires all the time, because they're afraid. And then they're happy to kill all their black and brown people in and outside the country. Anyway, I should probably end. It's late, time to go. But I did want to say that. So that's the game of Go that China's playing. China's not going to win by They're not gonna win by shooting missiles. They're not gonna throw nuclear. They're not gonna, China's not gonna throw rocks from space at you, kill you. They're not gonna kill millions of Americans. They're not going to invade. They're not gonna put aircraft carriers. They're not gonna put Red Dawn boots on the ground in Oregon, in Washington, and California, which is what that movie is about. Starring Chris Hemsworth, is Chinese military invasion of the West Coast. They're not gonna do that. Africa's not gonna come and attack you. The Eastern people are not the Harkonnens that are gonna go slaughter all the free men and come and kill all of the Americans. That's not. They're gonna play the game of Go. It's called peaceful cooperation, and then sometimes we have to, arrest Canadian spies that are welcomed by the Canadian spy agency because you're committing treason and spying and shit, and then we use that, and then we and then we have discussions between the U.S. That's what Biden and Xi talking about, and you say with that, and also with trade negotiations, like we're gonna cut off X and Y and Z trade with you. We're gonna if you don't allow Meng to come home, because it's Biden. Canada is just a puppet of the U.S. Biden says Trudeau jump, and Trudeau jumps 2 feet in the air and puts on blackface. So you have to so that's not what's gonna happen. What's gonna happen is, in the most peaceful way possible, not to say with zero violence, but in the most peaceful way possible, the U.S. will be outgoed, thinking they're playing chess, by the global South, and led by the most advanced indigenous civilization that is successful at present. That's China and Vietnam, and everyone else who wants to be under international law and respect international law, right? And stop illegally occupying Hawaii under international law. And if you join, it will be really great. If you don't, you'll cause suffering for your own people, sadly. So anyway, Neofeud is a story that I made in a cyberpunk adventure game interactive sort of manner about what it's like to live in the actual Harkonnen of Earth, Imperial Metropole, It's a game about the dystopic cyberpunk adventure game, in a vein of Land Runner with an overlay of Game of Thrones-like political intrigue. Not last 2 seasons, but it's a game that's about my experiences as a Native Hawaiian, as a social worker, as a STEM teacher, as a colonized Native Hawaiian under illegal occupation of the U.S. Empire, who banned my language and culture, and also what it's like to work full-time as a social services worker, STEM teacher, while making so little that I have to live in a Mazda tribute, eat spoonfuls of peanut butter for dinner, and feed children ramen with frozen peas and carrots, surrounded by food desert. So it's a game about real issues. It's a game about that suffering of the people in the colonizer world. It's a game about that, and it's also a game about satirical cyberpunk jokes like $6 billion ballers and Matrix agents getting shot defending multi-trillionaire princesses and hippie Terminators. Just riffing on 80s action movies, and also anti-war, anti-imperialist hippie Terminators saying they don't want to go back and do any more Dresden firebombing, and shooting of innocent leftists in uprisings in the Eastern Europe. So anyways, that it's a very Silver Spook game, but it's more. I had more sleep for the most part when I made this game than I had last night. So if you want to help us out, you can leave a very short review. You can check out Disco Elysium, and then Neofeud is like Disco Elysium, but Disco Elysium they did thank Marks and Engels, which is pretty cool, at the Game Awards 2019. However, Neofeud has more cyberpunk. I have spent more time hanging out with William Gibson, so I'm much cooler than any of the Disco Elysium creators, because that's the definition of coolness. And also it's a game that is had all the voice acting when it came out. No shit. Disco Elysium is a good game. You can also support. It's not made by a triple Apple-less shitscape company. You can also find Neofeud at itch and for Mac and Linux and Windows, and it's DRM free. You can get it on sale. You can also get it with the maximum revenue split going to the creators on itch.io. So consider that as well. But you can pay whatever you want, and you can give more, even if you want to buy it for more. You can also support us at patreon.com/Neofeud. On the Patreon, you can support us in an ongoing fashion, and you can also at the Silver Spook Cooperative with housing and land backing and feeding and clothing as many people as we can, no matter the skin color, no matter the where they came from, no matter how much money they have or don't have. We don't charge rent, but we do ask people to live in mutual respect with each other, respect the Aina, respect the Native Hawaiians who are the indigenous people here. But you want to support that project, and as well as making Neofeud 2, get inside sneak peeks on what I'm working on in Neofeud 2, as well as access to the Silver Spook Discord. Consider becoming a Patreon patron. Also, consider following us at Silver Spook Games at Octodon.social on Mastodon. Mastodon is a decentralized, non-capitalist controlled, federated social media platform. So it's kind of like Twitter, but without billionaires, surveillance capitalists, clowns, Wall Street magnates, and DC think tankies manipulating everything that you see. However, while we still have access to the Death Star satellites, you can follow me at Silver Spook Guy on Twitter, my personal account. You can also follow at Silver Spook Games, which is Silver Spook Games minus the E in silver. It's my that's a games related stuff, including when the Neofeud 2 comes out, Neofeud 2 progress. It's like one of the videos from Neofeud 2 progress. Neofeud, when Neofeud 1 goes on sale. And also, you can follow, if you want to follow, Terminus C. Terminus C is Terminus Cyberstar, which is a sequel to Terminus Machina, my Deus Ex Total Conversion. Terminus Cyberstar is a low-poly cyberpunk immersive sim in the vein of late 90s PC games like Deus Ex 1 and System Shock 2. If you're like an ancient, curmudgeonly, antediluvian, pre-Y2K, ancient millennial with like sore back and weird disabilities that are inexplicably showing up too early in your life, you not that you have to have all those problems to play this game, but that's a game. This is a game for those not retro, but it's similar to those early 90s, late 90s games like Deus Ex, System Shock, cyberpunk 3D RPG. It's a game that's being worked on by a handful of folks, including myself as the content director and lead writer, and then there's musicians, artists, programmers, writers, level designers, AI folks, QA, etc., all working on this game. It's really a handful of folks, but it's a game that I'm very much looking forward to seeing come to fruition and release whenever the producer Aaron Victoria sees fit to allow it to ship. And it's a game that's it's Silver Spook in its politics. You play a illegal immigrant into a U.S. like hellscape, escaping from a concentration camp, trying to fight to not get killed by the universal death care system. That is private American healthcare. So that's like one of the main missions that I really like and look forward to. But it's a game that you're trying to survive as a wanted individual in a city full of homeless people, poverty, treating people very terribly. And it's a game that's very real in the way that Neofeud and Terminus Machina are. More real than I would say a lot of cyberpunk. Talks about grittiness, but it doesn't really touch what it's like to be high-tech lowlife in a first world empire's ghetto, which I have first-hand experience of for most of my life. Anyways, so that's the game, Terminus Cyberstar. Check it out. Follow the Discord, join the Discord. Also, thank you very much to all these people on this list here. Very good people here. Thank you so much. Hey, thanks a lot, Mr. Red. Thanks, Holly, for hopping in there, and Holly for important modding and watching our chat work in this time of great problematic nonsense in chats. So thanks a lot, Holly. Thanks to all these people for your continued support. Does help us to do everything that we do here. Thanks again to Mexi for bringing me on the stream. Again, don't forget to check out the Mexi channel where I was recently on talking about land back, Hawaii, indigenous features, and Neofeud. So yeah, but anyways, until next time, keep your marriage pause. Be excellent to each other. Atreyu. Oh wait, wrong. Atreides. Is that what they say in Dune? I can't remember. I fell asleep because the fucking thing was boring. Feel free to watch Dune. I hope Jason Momoa keeps making movies, but let's remember that sometimes science fiction written in the West doesn't tell the truth about the East, and we have to keep that in mind. And see you later on if you want I'm gonna play an indigenous game later on, indigenous made game. By indigenous developer John Romero.